All right, good evening everybody and welcome to tonight's council meeting. I'm Deputy Mayor Trent Sullivan and I'll be chairing tonight's meeting as our Mayor Stephanie Asher has been granted a leave of absence. First of all, council would like to acknowledge the Wadawurrung people as the traditional owners of this land, waterways and skies. We pay our respects to the elders past and present and would like to acknowledge all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are part of the Greater Geelong community today. Now, this meeting will be broadcast on the internet and the recording of the meeting will be published on Council's website. But welcome to everybody online and in the chamber as well. I'd like to thank you all for making the journey into City Hall and once again thank those who are tuning in online. So just an hour ago, feedback on Council's proposed 2022-2023 budget closed. And on behalf of Council, I would like to thank all of the community members who took time to read through the draft budget and share their thoughts with the city. All submissions will certainly be considered. Now, we have a number of questions to get through tonight during the Q&A and a packed agenda ahead of us, so we'll proceed with the meeting. Councillors, I'll be asking for a strict adherence to speaking limit times tonight. Now tonight, as I said, I ask that Councillor Asher be noted as an apology for tonight's meeting as she was granted a leave of absence by Council until the 31st of May. Are there any further apologies or leaves of absence to note this evening? No. Since there are none, we'll move into conflicts of interest. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest to be made in relation to tonight's agenda? Councillor Grisbeck?
No.
No? That's fine, no worries.
On agenda, Deputy Mayor.
All good. If any conflicts do arise throughout the meeting, please let them be known as soon as you realise. Now, in regards to minutes, can I please have a mover and a seconder to confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on the 26th of April 2022? Can I have a mover, Councillor Mason, seconder, Councillor Murray? All those in favour? Thank you. Carried. All right. The next agenda item is public question and submission time. It is specifically available for questions and submissions rather than as a forum for discussion. In accordance with our policy, we set aside 45 minutes for question time, providing for each person to address the council for 3 minutes. Questions and submissions provided in writing prior to the meeting will be considered first. After this, if time permits, members of the gallery will then be given an opportunity to ask a question or make a submission. However, if it is in relation to an agenda item, councillors won't be able to provide you with an answer, but you'll certainly be able to hear us discuss it shortly. For those who have pre-submitted questions but are not present tonight, responses to your questions have been published on the council's website and will also be emailed to you. It's also important to note that councillors have read the questions, all of them, which have been sent in prior. Now, for tonight's meeting, we have 12 pre-submitted questions from 12 community members. I'll now read out the individuals and the topics of interest for noting. Jared Crow, in regards to building better bike connections. Ian, in regards to Ocean Grove dog regulation breaches. Pete Wright, for proposed social housing 5A Dean Street Reserve. Ali, with proposed social housing 5A Dean Street Reserve. Lindsay Cameron, for councillor conduct. Sean Jones, documents relating to 5A Dean Street Reserve. And Gian Naudikoka, in regards to City of Greater Geelong tree management related documents. Lewis Dikoka, in regards to the City of Greater Geelong Urban Forest Strategy. Vanessa Whittam, in regards to tree removal for development in Highton and the City of Greater Geelong Urban Forest Strategy. Catherine Talbot, in regards to proposed social housing 5A Dean Street Reserve. Bill Marshall, for tree planting schedule for 2022. And Warren Chapman, in regards to Ocean Grove all ability access. May I have a show of hands for members in the gallery whose names I've just read out? Okay, we've got a few. Excellent. I'll now go through them in relation. So is Jared Crow here this evening? Is Ian? Pete Wright? Yeah, Pete, please come forward and ask your question if you'd like to. Come up to the front. So I'll just ask that you take a seat, say your name, and then the floor's all yours. Please.
Excuse me. Peter Wright, 15 Dorothy Avenue, Belmont. If it's okay with the council, I'll be speaking on behalf of my wife, Ali, who submitted questions, but we weren't able to get a sitter for her to attend this evening. So she was the next on the list.
Noted.
First question, why were the neighbours who used the 5A Dean Street Reserve as rear access to their properties, primarily only Dorothy Avenue, not consulted or even notified before temporary fencing was erected for asbestos removal at the Scout Hall?
Thank you for your question, Pete. I'll ask this for the Director for Customer and Corporate Services, Michael DeGina. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you for your question, Peter. So in regards to your question, the demolition and associated works are not being managed or delivered by the city. The city is going to contact Scouts Victoria, who is managing the demolition process, and ask them to provide some further community engagement.
Second question. Why was a planning permit not posted at the Scout Hall at 5A Dean Street before fencing was erected and demolition commenced? I thought this was compulsory.
Yeah. So if you again, Michael, or?
Yes, please, Deputy Mayor. Peter, the planning permit is not required for demolition. However, a building permit is likely to be required, and these can be issued by private surveyors, so not necessarily issued by the city. And as we're not managing the site, we are not the party that needs to present them.
As a public use hall, why has the council not made available to the public the engineer's report condemning the Scout Hall at 5A Dean Street? City of Greater Geelong does not have a copy of the engineer's report on file. It remains with the engineer, who apparently will conduct the demolition. In an effort to maintain transparency, shouldn't this be made available to the community? The local community is quite concerned.
Peter, is that a combination of your questions 3 and 4 that were pre-submitted?
I can't see 4, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I believe Michael should be able to answer the questions. Please, yeah. Michael.
I have the questions in front of me, Peter, so I can sort of answer both if that helps. It's usual practice for any document containing information to be commercial in confidence to be requested on the FOI, Freedom of Information legislation, so that it can be assessed in accordance with the provisions of the Act. However, the demolition of buildings on 5A Dean Street has occurred because the tenancy of the Scouts is ending under the lease, and the city does not require them to retain the building. And that, for a fact, our lease conditions require Scouts to demolish the building as a part of the make good provisions on their tenancy agreement when vacating the site.
That provides answers to all the submitted questions that you pre-submitted, Peter. Under your
mine,
name?
Yes.
Yeah, if your name. Absolutely.
With Ali's?
No, you'll just forgive me just for due process. I've got to ask out if Ali's in the hall and that you say that you were going to be speaking on her behalf. So if Ali's not here and you've just said that you are speaking on her behalf, I'm happy to proceed with you asking the questions on behalf of your wife, Ali, as you said. Thank you.
What are the council's intentions, social housing, for the block at 5A Dean Street and 237 High Street, Belmont, not announced prior to the community hub being demolished some 9 months ago, I think it was?
We thank you for those questions, and will you be asking that on behalf of Community Life, Michael, or? I think we have Director Robin Stevens from Community Life come up to answer that question.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you for the questions. So as has been stated already by Michael, the demolition of the buildings at 5A Dean Street has occurred because of the tenancies ending. And while the buildings are not owned by the city, the land is, and the buildings require demolition in accordance with their agreement under their tenancy. The demolition of the building is not on the site, is not related to the proposal to use the site for social housing, which Council will decide on later this year. Should Council decide against using 5A Dean Street for social housing and consider other uses for the site, the buildings would still require demolition under the tenancy exit agreement.
I believe you have a second question to read out on behalf of Valley.
Why does the compulsory allocation of large areas of public open space in new estates take precedence over retaining existing public open space in central Belmont? The known benefits to residents of public open space is reflected in state and local planning rules, yet this area, 5A Dean Street, is not being considered by Council for this purpose despite an obvious shortage in the area. A recent Google Earth survey shows 150 hectare cross-section of central Belmont having approximately 0.5 of a hectare of public open space, of which 0.4 of a hectare is retained at 5A Dean Street, whilst approximately 260 hectares of new estate in Highton has approximately 26.5 hectares. Why the disparity? Maps to be provided, that's the next bit. I have a copy of maps if the councillors are interested in seeing if they'd like to pass them around quickly.
Please, if you just pass them to our Chair of Governance.
Straight's our cross-section of Belmont there, and that's the new estates in Highton. And just to go with them, that's just distances from Dean Street to the nearest public open spaces. The councillors may or may not be interested.
Robin, please.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan.
Sorry, that was the end of your question too, yes?
Yeah, just number 3.
Yeah, we'll just get the answer to number 2, please. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you. The requirement to provide public open space within new subdivisions came into effect in the Victorian Planning Scheme in 1989. The planning for the development of new estates in Highton and other areas such as Armstrong Creek are subject to a requirement within the Geelong Planning Scheme for the provision of up to 10% of developable land to be provided as public open space. The open space contribution requirement was not in effect at the time of the development of the city's more established suburbs, and consequently these areas often do have a lower provision of public open space compared to new subdivisions. A cross-section taken from Google Earth doesn't accurately convey designated land use. So as an example, the new estate in Highton has several large reserves which may appear as public open space on an aerial image, yet in fact have been provided as drainage reserves to convey overland flows during rainfall events. These reserves do not function as public open space and are typically not counted towards the subdivision's open space contributions.
For my own credibility, could I add to that? I ground-proofed all these reserves, and if you note on the map there, the large yellow section, which is the stormwater runaway, is not included in that 26.5 hectares. So I drove around, looked at all the parklands, playgrounds and public open space in that reserve and ground-proofed them all. So that large yellow section you can see kind of in the middle there, that's not included in the 26.5 hectares. And it's clearly delineated differently.
Yeah, Peter. So you've got under a minute left. You have 1 or 2 more questions left. Sorry, you have question 3 or 4?
No, I've only got
Just one more?
3.
Okay,
One more.
please, go ahead.
The Scout Hall at Rugby Street currently running at or above capacity. Sorry. The Scout Hall at Rugby Street is currently running at or above capacity. Complaints have been received by Council from local residents relating to parking and noise at this location. Has the Council had an independent engineer's report conducted on the structure there also? Although it is privately owned, it is used as a public facility. Shouldn't it be held to the same level of structural scrutiny as a scouting structure on public land or at Dean Street? Why is the facility at Dean Street, 5A Dean Street, not being considered for improvement with its larger size and greater off-street parking capacity?
Thank you, Peter. Robin?
Thank you, Peter. The property at 36 to 38 Rugby Street, Belmont, is owned by Scouts Victoria, and Scouts Victoria has advised the council of its intention to move this Scouts group to another location. The property at 36 to 38, we've just had that one. So in terms of, I can't add further comment on in terms of the structural integrity, so I'll have to take that on notice. Thank you, Mayor Sullivan.
Thank you for your questions, Peter and Ali.
Councillors.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Do we have a Lindsay Cameron in the room? Nope. A Sean Jones? Good evening, Sean.
Sorry,
No worries.
I have to peer over the top.
All good. If you just state your name and then the floor is yours.
Certainly. My name is Sian Jones. I'm a resident of Belmont. I must admit I'm not entirely sure of the value of reading my questions and then having the questions or the answers read right of reply, but we'll give it a go anyway. Question 1. Is it correct that the surveyor's stroke engineer's report claiming the buildings on the site were unsafe, upon which the demolition of the buildings at 5A Dean Street were based, cannot be located by council staff as it is no longer on file? And why, if this is the case, can a copy not be procured and supplied as requested by community groups?
Good question. Michael Degena to answer that one.
Thank you for the question, Sian. No formal reports were received by the City from Scouts Victoria in relation to this building. The City's been in negotiation with Scouts Victoria regarding the removal of the building. It's a requirement by the tenant and end of lease. As they've communicated to us, they're moving to another location.
I understand that. The same question Pete Wright asked was slightly differently answered, so perhaps someone could revisit that because it was suggested that an FOI for that same report could be submitted. So I'm not sure whether Pete's question has been incorrectly answered or mine.
Perhaps if I can explain, Deputy Mayor. The note around the FOI is if you, in a normal process, need to get something from council as that has in commercial and confidence process. We're just giving you the answer that that's the process in order to be able to do that. But in this situation, there is no report to seek an FOI for.
No, I do understand that, but Pete's question refers to the engineer's report specifically. Anyway, moving on, question 2, which really means that you've answered that question as well. Is it correct that the firm contracted to produce this now missing report deeming the buildings on site as unsafe and requiring demolition has connections with the firm undertaking the demolition? I think that's already been answered too. Question 3 is, why is the council refusing to supply some relevant documentation requested, citing it as commercial in confidence, but has suggested we instead submit an FOI to access this information? Again, you've answered that question for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Right. Is Jean Nel de Cocker in the room? Please.
My name is Jean Nel de Cocker. A transcript of the proceedings of the 22nd March Council meeting reflects that the Director of City Services, Mr. Guy Wilson-Brown, confirmed that requests for funding to develop and maintain the significant tree register were submitted, and I quote, on a number of occasions in the previous budget years. However, the City of Geelong minutes of that meeting, confirmed by the Council on 26 April 22, do not reflect Mr. Wilson-Brown's response accurately. It contains responses prepared and provided ahead of the meeting. In particular, it does not contain any reference to the funding requests in previous years. My question, can the Council clarify why the minutes deviate significantly from the transcript and the meaning of what transpired at the meeting, with no objection from councillors when the minutes, councillors who were in attendance at the meeting in March, when the minutes in April were approved.
Thank you, Jan. Much appreciated. For that, I'll ask for a question or an answer from our acting CEO, Karina Farland.
Thank you for your questions, Jean. The council meeting minutes are not a verbatim record of the meeting. Minutes provide a brief summary of question time and submissions, with full recordings of the meeting made available on the city's website.
Question. During the March 2022 council meeting, Mr. Gareth Smith, the Director, City Planning and Economy, responded to a question about the urban forest strategy, stating that we will next measure our canopy coverage in 2024. We anticipate we will see an increase in canopy coverage across the city at this time. However, the City of Geelong's annual report 2020-21, tabled at the October 2021 meeting, reported, and that's on page 51, that the city is not anticipating, and again I'm quoting, an increase in urban tree canopy for the next 10 years, in other words, 2031. My question is, can the council clarify the contradiction between the two written responses?
Absolutely. For that, we have our Director of City Services, Guy Wilson-Brown.
Thank you, Acting Mayor, and thank you, Jean, for your question. My response also embraces your question 3. So just for clarity, I guess, for everyone, I'll just add with the further question.
Shall we just wait? Would you like to?
Can you just answer my second question?
My response, because
they are two separate issues.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll give you this answer, and I guess you can let me know if I've embraced both questions or not. So my response is the city is working to plant as many trees as possible. However, canopy development takes time. The city is anticipating a measurable increase in tree canopy in 10 years, which is to be expected as young trees do not provide significant canopy until the coverage until they mature. Okay, I'll wait for the third one.
But I just need to clarify, so that doesn't answer my question. Why is there a difference between the annual report, which on page 51 says there is no anticipated, we don't anticipate an increase in coverage, and you're just saying we are. But anyway, we'll leave it at that. Question 3. Can the council confirm, during March 22, again at that meeting, the City Services Director reported that a request for funding for a significant tree register has been submitted for the 2022-23 budget. It's not clear from the proposed budget documents available on the city's website whether the proposed budget has allocated funds to the development and maintenance of a significant tree register. I want to know whether the request that Mr. Wilson-Brown referred to for funding has been approved for the 2023 budget, and if so, the amount allocated.
Thank you, John. Guy, please.
Thank you, and again, for your question. Funding for a significant tree register is not in the draft 22-23 budget. However, the city has recently developed an urban forest dashboard on the Geelong Data Exchange website, which displays the city-owned tree population. The city is now intending to add the identification of significant trees to this data set. The city will therefore be seeking funding in future budget years to enable this project to continue. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, do we have a Lewis DeCoca in the room? Lewis, please.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Councillors, perhaps before the clock starts, just on a point of order, this is a further opportunity where this happened. The questions as submitted to the council is not the questions as they emerged. There are text blocks that have gone all over. Now, somewhere there may be something happening in the back office, or there's a problem between the interface, but what I'm looking at and what I submitted is not quite the same. So please bear with me. I'll ask the questions as I inputted them rather than as they emerged and may now find their way to the minutes. Ensure the urban forest objectives are integrated into all key city documents where possible is an action under Objective 4 of the city's urban forest strategy adopted in 2015. Since the adoption of the strategy, please indicate the steps the Council has taken to amend the local planning policy provisions to integrate the urban forest, not the urban heat, but the urban forest objectives into the city's planning scheme. That's question 1, linked to 1. And then secondly, the strategy also lists measure all key performance indicators in 2020 and report on progress. We have not been able to find that 2020 measurement and would like to know where we can get hold of that report. Thank you.
Director Gavin-Smith to answer.
Deputy Mayor, and thank you for the question. The objectives from the Urban Forest Strategy to deliver 25% tree canopy coverage has been included at Clause 21.20 for the northern and western growth areas to guide the new development in that major area. Further, the review of the Greater Geelong Municipal Strategic Statement is currently underway and will further incorporate major policy initiatives related to sustainable development into our planning scheme. Sustainable design, shading, urban heat principles are currently addressed through existing clauses in the planning scheme. This includes Clause 15.02-1S, which has direction to reduce urban heat island effect by greening urban areas. Council also has a range of objectives promoting best practice for environmental sustainable design in Clause 22.71 of the scheme. Additionally, there are specific requirements in place for planning permit applications to include landscape plans and meet minimum level of permeability and garden area in the appropriate zones. Further, in the general residential zone and neighbouring neighbourhood residential zone, there is also a requirement for canopy trees to be planted for each dwelling constructed. The City's Environment Strategy 2020-2030 and the Urban Forest Strategy 2015-25 are complementary to the planning requirements mentioned above, and all of the principles, directions and recommendations in both strategies continue to be major factors in council decision-making process relating to these matters.
Thank you for that answer. Several council documents affirm the council's commitment to the health and well-being of residents. And yet a 2020 Deakin Council report reported on urban vulnerability to heat risk factors that are already evident in Geelong and reported, should nothing change, therefore increased canopy cover, the consequences of heat waves on the Geelong population will include more deaths, greater heat stress and heat-related medical conditions. Yet, as we've just heard, the Council does not envisage an increase in urban tree canopy until 2031, and despite this, the Council indicated in its official response to the residents' tree canopy petition that the development of tree protection controls in suburban areas is not in our current work programme. Can the Council indicate how, in view of this information, the decision not to develop tree protection control measures to secure Geelong's tree canopy supports and promotes residents' current health and well-being?
Yours. Yep. Gareth, please.
Deputy Mayor, I'm happy to answer this on behalf of Guy Wilson-Brown, but certainly high-level KPIs such as the number of trees planted and net gain are reported through the annual report. The City has developed a progress report that measures all of the KPIs and will include this in the City's website, a link to the Urban Forest Strategy. The Geelong Data Exchange also reports in real time the number of trees planted and a detailed breakdown of the top 10 species and age, height, structure, health and useful life expectancy of urban forest. And your response that you'll receive has the website link for that as well.
And there was that further bit about whether the council can indicate how, in view of this information, its decision not to develop tree protection control measures to secure the canopy to protect the health of citizens supports and promotes residents' current health and well-being.
Thank you for that additional question. And Environment Strategy 2020-2030 and the Urban Forest Strategy are focused on protecting and improving the health of the local environment. These strategies play a key role in council decision-making processes as we recognise the important role the natural environment plays in the health and well-being of our community. While sustainable design, shading and urban heat principles are addressed through existing clauses in the planning scheme, through the MSS review, the Municipal Strategic Statement, that is, review will be looking at ways at further incorporating objectives relating to sustainable development, including tree canopy, into our planning scheme.
Thank you, Acting Mayor, and we'll be happy to work with you and the CEO's office to clarify just the communication between those who put the questions and perhaps how you receive it on your side.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lewis, for that point. All right, do we have a Vanessa Whittam with us this evening? Vanessa, please, come forward. So just state your name and the floor is yours.
My name's Vanessa Whittam. Good evening, Deputy Mayor and councillors. Pardon me. My first question, as explained in an answer to a question addressed to the council meetings on the 26th of October 2021 and 23rd of March 2022, during the years 2015 to 2021, the total number of trees planted by council in Highton in GRZ 4 and RGZ2 was 120. By contrast, in only 9 development applications, in other words, a small portion of total applications, the number of trees to be removed was 402. And I included in the question a list of the properties and the number of trees for each property, but I won't read them out now. Would each councillor please advise individually if they were aware of the scale of tree removal for development in Highton?
Thank you, Vanessa, for your question. Councillors are certainly aware of the replanting program and of the certain amount of what is considered small tree removal, but I can assure you that the councillors for the Cardinia area are certainly paying very, very intense attention to the issues of trees removal and planting in these areas. But if any Cardinia councillors wish to speak, then happy to. Councillor Nelson.
Hi Vanessa, how are you? Yeah, I am aware, and I am as concerned as you, and most of the ones that are on here, certainly the ones with the majority of the trees, I've actually called into council planning, and we've declined those applications, so they've gone off to VCAT and been approved by the current state government. Those big ones there that you see, they've gone to VCAT and they've been approved.
I'm aware.
I'm very aware.
Yeah, okay. Any other councillors want to make a mention?
I can guarantee you, all questions have to be directed to the chair, but the councillors representing the area are certainly aware of this issue.
A second question. Given the council urban forest strategy requirement to increase tree cover to 25%, will council explain how they plan to correct this imbalance?
Vanessa, we've got Director Guy Wilson-Brown to answer the question number 2.
Thank you, Vanessa, for your question. In accordance with the Urban Forest Strategy, the City is planning to increase canopy coverage by 25% by 2045 throughout a number of initiatives, which include but are not limited to the following. Planting over 2,500 trees annually as part of our Streets and Parks program, creating a net gain of 1,500 trees per year. Ensuring growth areas planned for a sufficient number of trees to meet the goals of the Urban Forest Strategy and monitoring the stock quality and care of young trees. Collaborating with friends of groups and community groups to undertake mass planting programs such as the National Tree Planting Day. Running educational programs through the Geelong Botanic Gardens to promote the value of planting trees. And finally, adopting policy requirements for offset trees to be planted when city-owned trees are to be removed to facilitate works. Thank you.
Vanessa.
Deputy Mayor.
We have a Catherine Talbot here with us this evening. Catherine, please come forward. If you could just please state your name for me, and the floor is yours.
Hi, good evening. I'm Catherine Talbot. Good evening, councillors and Deputy Mayor. So my questions relate to 5A Dean Street, the proposed development. So why has there been no traffic impact study done on the proposed social housing development at 5A Dean Street? There is already significant traffic and parking issues on Dorothy Avenue, Dean Street and Lloyd Street due to the site's close proximity to Oberon Primary School, which is less than 50 metres away, and TLC Nursing Home car park, which is on the other side of the property. We've been told this would take place after the site has been handed over to a developer.
Thank you for your question, Catherine. I'll hand over to Director of Community Life, Robin Stevens, for an answer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan, and thank you, Catherine, for your question. At this stage, the community has been engaged to seek their views on whether 5A Dean Street should be made available for social housing development. An assessment of the potential impact of a development on local traffic and parking would be undertaken if Council decided to proceed with this proposal. Therefore, should Council proceed with transferring 5A Dean Street for social housing, then such assessments would be undertaken in order to inform the design and the development. But I'll reiterate that the engagement was on whether social housing should be pursued on this location in this first instance.
Thank you. So my second question. Why were the public not adequately informed that state government will no longer be paying the rates on the 100 social housing properties that Council planned to transfer land to have built? At the 22nd of Feb 22 Council meeting, it was said that the Council will absorb these costs. During the consultation phase for social housing on Council land, this information was not published at the time.
Catherine. Robin, please.
Thank you, Catherine, for the question. So the rates exemption was a proposed state government legislation, and at the time there was no certainty that it would be enacted. Since the February Council meeting, the state government has withdrawn this proposed legislation, and therefore social housing is not exempt from rates.
Deputy Mayor, if I might
so we'd just like to make a point from...
If I can just add another point, that it is a sector-wide issue that the whole state is dealing with right now. So as Robin has said, it's not been legislated and they stepped back from that legislation. So we're hoping that it's not going to be the case.
Hey, my third question. Why have residents in the Belmont community not been consulted about what they want the Dean Street site to be used for? When others and myself asked this question during online forums about social housing at the Dean Street site, we were told to add what we wanted to see done with the site instead of social housing. Many members of the community were not aware of this and therefore didn't comment and want a separate, transparent community consultation about what the site should be used for. This is the only public open space in this part of Belmont and a significant community asset that should be available for future generations. Might I add on as well, when we've consulted with members of our group, we've got almost 100, just over 100 on our Facebook group who'd like to see the space used as green space or public open space, have wanted community gardens, they've wanted parkland, playgrounds, and they'd want a men's, women's shed, just a community space in general.
Thank you, Catherine. Robin?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. And just in response to that, the recent 6-week engagement was on the proposal to transfer the land at 5A Dean Street for the purposes of social housing, and community members were asked specifically for their views on that as a proposal. Community members were asked to what extent they supported the proposal and to provide reasons why, their input. And were there community members who opposed the proposal because of a preference for an alternative use? Those community members were encouraged to provide those views via Have Your Say survey. Should council not wish to proceed with the transfer, the future use will be determined at a later stage.
Thank you, Catherine. We have a Bill Marshall here with us. Sean? That's fine. If he's nominated representative, please.
The first question is which suburbs will receive priority planting of street trees for the 2022 planting season?
And does he have a second question there as well?
Yes, there's a second question.
Okay. Director Guy Wilson-Brown, please.
Thank you, Jean, again for your questions on behalf of Bill. The 2022 Priority Tree Planting Program will focus on Corio, also with sites in Lara, Rippleside, Geelong, Port Arlington, Ocean Grove and Barwon Heads.
Just one point there, Councillor Aiken, do you wish to make comment before that?
Can I just add, I'm happy to take responsibility why it's actually focused in the northern suburbs as well too, as a council representing that area. We actually had a heat map done of the whole of Geelong, and that heat map did identify that the northern suburbs actually had significant less trees than the rest of urbanised Geelong, and it was a clear indication to the council and the officers that certainly the northern suburbs needed to be the area first where we looked at planting trees, and I'm really proud what we've achieved over the last 2.5 years with that program in the northern suburbs in particular.
And that is commendable, that's true, but that list of 7 vulnerable suburbs includes Whittington, it includes Highton, so it is actually broader, but it's fantastic that you have, and you are working Corio, absolutely. And then, can I just clarify whether councillors, you responded and said, Councillor Nelson responded and said...
So, Jean, please, as the representative of Bill Marshall, you're here to speak on Bill Marshall's behalf, not your own questions. Is there a second one? Yes.
Yes, there's a note that VCAT decisions are made and based on the council, the Greater Geelong Planning Scheme, that is managed by the City of Greater Geelong.
And there's not the pre-submitted question we have for reading out on behalf of Bill. Do you want to finish reading out, or if not, Bill's answers will be sent to him. Thank you. Do we have a Warren Chapman here with us in the room this evening? If not, that is the end of the pre-submitted questions for this evening. Now, I believe that there is to be a submission from Ingrid Sutherland on behalf of the Belmont Traders, Group. Ingrid, if you're hearing that, yep, please. Please come in and address the council, please.
Good evening. My name is Ingrid Sutherland. I'm the Secretary of the Belmont Traders Association. Nicola Dorr, the President, is also present tonight. Thank you for taking my submission. We wanted to ensure that Council was aware of some issues in relation to consultation around the Building Better Bike Connections project, Southern Link Stage 2.
Sorry, Deputy Mayor, do I need to step out in relation to bike lanes?
I'm saying this is a submission, not a council decision to be made, but if you would like to step out, the decision is up to you.
Yep, thank you.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure I didn't have a conflict.
Yep. Sorry, this is just a submission to ensure that Council is aware of some inconsistencies with the consultation process. We are aware that Council is preparing to vote on the upcoming tender process for the Bikeways Southern Link Stage 2, which affects High Street, Belmont. We would like to ensure that Council is aware that there are alternative plans that have been put out to tender that are different to the original plans that were consulted with the community in 2018 and 2019. I would like to thank Cardinia Ward councillors for organising and attending a meeting for Belmont Traders last Wednesday evening. At that meeting, Guy Wilson Brown revealed that there was an alternative option put to tender, which looks like the original option 1. Option 2B, which was the option that Council voted to go ahead with, has also been put to tender, but Council should be aware that the version of 2B that detailed plans have been drawn for looks more like option 3 in the original consultation, as the bikeways form part of the road and not the footpath. The reason I wanted to bring this to councillors' attention is because there are traders in Belmont that have been attempting to consult with council over this since the beginning in a constructive and positive way. We embrace investment on High Street, and we look forward to some improvement in our area. However, the consultation process has been confusing and we have inconsistent designs going out to tender to what was actually approved. I just also want to mention that we are also, we attempted to consult, and during COVID, obviously everything went very quiet, but in February of this year we requested a follow-up from the Building Better Bikeways area of council and didn't receive one until I got an invitation to come to a meeting with the Cardinia councillors about this. I do have copies of the original consultation and the plans that show the inconsistencies if councillors would like to look at it as well.
Good. Thank you for submission this evening. Much appreciated.
Thank you for your time.
Now, whilst we have gone over the 45 minutes allocated for public question time, I still see the members of the audience here who may wish to ask questions, so I'm happy to extend that until 7 p.m. Are there any other members of the audience who would like to make a question or submission? Ma'am, please. We'll just let Sarah get those papers off the table first, but if you could just take a seat, say your name, and the floor is yours.
Good evening, I'm Vicky Grosser. I'm the president of Geelong One Fire Reconciliation Group, and Deputy Mayor and councillors, I'm delighted to talk with you a little this evening. I want to make a short submission, and I have one question. I want to acknowledge firstly that we're on Wadawurrung country and pay my respects on behalf of our members to elders past and present and emerging, and to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people across the Greater Geelong region and to those present this evening. We are really delighted that the 26th of January is on the agenda this evening. I represent Geelong One Fire at the Killinjit Aboriginal Advisory Committee, and the discussions there have been important, and our group feels very strongly about needs for changes in this area. So we're hopeful that this community engagement will be really useful for all of us and move us all forward in the region. And appreciate the community life, I know the changes overtake me, department in the leadership for this issue to council tonight. I'd also like to mention that Reconciliation in the Park was an enormous success on Sunday, and appreciate Councillor Mansfield and Murray for attending and participating there. And my question, and Aikens, excuse me, Anthony. My question is that now that we're approaching National Reconciliation Week, we would be interested to know what reconciliation is currently meaning to each of you. as we have opportunities to move ahead together and you're in these wonderful leadership roles. Thank you.
Vicky, it's a very important question, definitely, and apparently since on the agenda. I'm happy to transfer though to our Aboriginal portfolio holders, if they wish to make comments first.
Thank you for your question, Vicky. It could require a very complex answer, but reconciliation ultimately means, I think, acceptance and respect of each other, and it's a process through which that's achieved through understanding, having deeper cultural understanding, truth-telling, and ultimately treaty. And we have a tool at the moment, a generously offered tool, which is the Uluru Statement from the Heart, which I'm proud to say this council has already endorsed, and that tool is going to offer a process throughout the country, and in each small country, such as Wadawurrung country, we will hopefully enter processes of truth-telling and greater and deeper cultural understanding. It's not only cultural understanding, it's an understanding of the recent colonial history and the deeper, long history in deep time. So there's a lot of things that we need to embark upon to really fully reconcile our relationship.
Forgive me since this item is on the agenda, I won't go around the table to everybody, but Councillor Mansfield, do you wish to make comment?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Look, I think Councillor Mason has really described it quite beautifully, but for me, I guess reconciliation isn't an end point, it's a journey, and it's one that, you know, we're all in different places in that journey, but it's one that we're all on, hopefully together, and, you know, as part of that, it's really important that we listen, you know, as Karina Eccles likes to tell us, you know, do some deep listening, listen to our community, what are they feeling, what are they telling us, and as leaders, I think, you know, as part in that, in our community, we have a responsibility, as part of that reconciliation journey to act on what we are, you know, being asked to do by the community, but certainly having, you know, an open heart, open mind, listening, and being prepared to walk on that journey.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Aiken.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. And Vicky, look, thank you for giving us the opportunity to be able to speak about this issue as well too by raising your question tonight. Look, I actually take words from the Uluru Statement from the Heart. Reconciliation really is a movement for the Australian people to actually have a better future, and that's actually what we're really attempting to do for all of us. We actually have to discover how we can participate in reconciliation, and ultimately it's so that we all have a better future here as Australians, and very importantly our First Nation people as well too. I encourage everybody to actually look at how they can participate in reconciliation and find a way you can actually do that. And that's, to me, what ultimately reconciliation means. And it's something that all of us learnt in 2017 from the statement. I mean, our First Nations people actually use beautiful language to actually encourage all Australians to talk about having a better future. And I think that's what we can try and achieve.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Now, I won't be going around the table unless anyone immediately speaks, because people do have comments to be made on the item when it comes before us in number 2. But everybody on this council is committed to working together, engaging meaningfully, and then walking forwards together as well.
Great, thank you. We look forward to continuing that journey with you, led by local First Nations people. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. Do we have any other questions from the gallery this evening? Please. Just wait until Cass can wipe the table down.
My name's Tom O'Connor. I live in Drysdale. My comments this evening relate to the Community Engagement Interim Report, item 211 on tonight's agenda. And it's really about highlighting the importance and the relevance. And I guess we all know that, you know, it's nothing foreign to any of us, just how important. But I won't use the words that are used in the report, but community engagement, and I mean total community engagement. We're on the march. Thank you very much, Karina. We're on the march. We've got to accelerate the process, particularly more so now that, you know, we're in this post-COVID era. I don't know whether it's right, Jim, whether it's post-COVID or whether it's more COVID, but it doesn't matter. You know, we've got to get on with the game. The examples of it so far, and can I commend publicly Kate Shearer and Sarah Robinson? They conducted a community engagement process on surplus assets and additional assets required at Port Arlington. And it really was a credit to them. Sarah rang me this afternoon to say that it'll be about another week before the interim report or the pre-report comes out, but it was, you know, the fact that she took the time to ring and say, we haven't got the final report, but it's coming out, should have it within the week. You know, that's part of the journey, and, Kyle, it's just great stuff. You've got to love it. The next move, I'd urge us all to look at the Councillor Nelson particularly, you know, the single council awards. Single council awards. Now, what does that mean? Does it mean we're going to have 4 wards with 1 councillor for each ward? And I say that in reference to community, what do we call them? Community groups. And I think now's the chance when we can utilise this process that's underway now to further engage the community in effective groups. You look at the community, we all know it, there's nothing new. We all know just how much resource is in that community. It doesn't matter whether it's financial, whether it's emotional, whether it's cultural, whether it's land, whether it's connectivity, whether it's intelligence, whether it's skill. There's so much resource out there that we're not utilising. This is where these community groups are so important. Right, that's that one. The next one is the policy as it stands now, and dare I add the pluses with a minus. We talk about IAP2 in our report, in our policy, but we don't deliver to the IAP2. We're not delivering to it. And I guess you all know what the IAP2 spectrum looks like. 5 components to it. The last one says, we will deliver what you decide. We haven't yet got to that stage, and I go back to the post-COVID, you know, we've got to do it now. We don't have much longer. You know, Bruce, what it's like. Right.
Thank you should have, please.
I beg yours.
We've out of time. Can you please finish up your statements or question?
I don't have a question. I want to comment.
It was a submission comment?
To commend what you're doing.
Excellent.
What's being done, and thanks to the acting CEO. You should have in front of you tonight the extract that I plagiarised from the consultant's report. Have you got that there? Yeah, you've got it online. Good. There's some elements in there, and part of that item 3 is further consideration for training of the advisory committees. And I think we've got to not just engage them, but help them on the journey, but do it professionally. You know what it's like, Ed. You know, we've got to do it professionally. Get serious about it. I don't propose to go through that, Mr. Acting Mayor. I don't believe we've got the time, but I really do commend the journey, commend where you're at the moment, but let's accelerate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tom. We've hit 7 o'clock, but I'm happy to accept any last-minute questions from the floor. If not, thank you all. That concludes question time for this evening, and I would like to thank all submitters for the questions this evening, to councillors and to officers alike. We are greatly They are greatly appreciated. I'll now move into petitions. Now, I'm aware of 2 petitions to be tabled this evening. One I will be tabling myself on behalf of Petra Porter in relation to a petition for speed humps for Princess Street, Drysdale. This is a petition for the installation of speed humps, for the extension of a safe bike lane from the bypass to the centre of town, and for the continuation of a footpath from 84 Princess Street, Drysdale, to the rail trail to make it safer as well. So I have the pleasure of tabling that petition on behalf of Porter this evening. Petra. Now I believe we have another one to be tabled by Councillor Maloney as well. Councillor Maloney.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I've just got the petition here, Keep the Dean Street Plantation Reserve. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'd like to table this petition on behalf of the residents of Belmont. Over 770 residents have signed this petition, so it's regarding the proposed sale of Dean Street Plantation Reserve in Belmont that you've heard a little bit about earlier tonight, citing the proposal for the removal of the open space and the designated plantation area as impacting poorly on the already densely populated and high traffic area. Some constituents have contacted me regarding the inconsistent and poor levels of communication from Council with respect to the proposal and the engagement that we've all heard about tonight. The community wished to keep this as an open space, and the large community hall, which was until recently utilised by the Scouts. There's been some lack of transparency as to how this demolition has been undertaken. And in response to this petition, I'll also be lodging a notice of motion on behalf of these constituents to further investigate what's been happening and the appropriateness of the behaviour and the transfer of the land with respect to not necessarily social housing, but more so to the feasibility study, the lack of EOI, consideration of success factors including traffic and waste management, and a bunch of other things that are listed in this petition. But I'd like to lodge this on behalf of the concerned constituents of Belmont, and hoping to get some more information before this comes back before Council. Thanks, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. The petition is well tabled. I also note that I failed to mention that the petition I tabled had 104 signatures gathered by Petra Porter. Are there any other petitions to be tabled by councillors? If not, we'll move into Section B, reports for this evening. The first report is the Social Equity Framework 2022 to 2025. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mansfield. Seconded. Councillor Mason. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I think this is the second time this one has come before us. This is coming back after a round of community consultation, and I'm really pleased to see a refined version of the social equity framework that was presented to the community. Councils have a huge community impact, and that might be through infrastructure, services, local laws, planning, and it's essential that we distribute our resources fairly. We need to ensure that all residents can participate fully in the community, and that really should be part of our core business. So this framework formalises our approach to social equity and aims to embed it more explicitly in the work that we do. The framework also identifies priority groups because we recognise that there are some members of our community who face more barriers than others. We already have some great examples of policies that are informed by social equity principles. As an example, our community plan, our Bargurk Gender Equity Framework, our Multicultural Action Plan and our Reconciliation Action Plan. We've also got a Social Infrastructure Plan. So, and these are more than just the paper that they're written on. They have delivered actions. There are a whole range of examples of activities, programs, services we undertake to address social equity. Examples include our Vital Communities program. That's a comprehensive program that's looking at enhanced community infrastructure for communities of Corio, Norlane, Whittington, including a range of capital works programs. We have developed a health literacy and social equity writing guide for our services so that the language used is consistent, respectful. We have an Aboriginal outreach project in Whittington that took place particularly during COVID and helped to encourage children to return to early years settings. There's another great example is our culturally and linguistically diverse swimming programs, which run dedicated men's and women's groups and are really popular. So these are some fantastic examples, but perhaps in areas where we already have strength in addressing social equity. There are many areas of council business where perhaps this isn't a major driver, and hopefully this framework will help us to get there by elevating it as a priority. The other thing that I think it does well, and it was part of something we heard in the community feedback, is that it really identifies the important role of partnerships with community and organisations in achieving better outcomes. And I think this is an area where we really have room to grow as a council. There's so many organisations who have deep community roots, and we could use those relationships to improve our policies and programs and decisions. So this document's now in its final stage following the community feedback, and I'd really like to extend my thanks to all of those who provided feedback. It is so valuable when we hear from the community. It makes our work better when we get that feedback. We know that our advisory committee members were particularly instrumental in shaping the document, but I know that there was a lot of broader community input as well. It was really thorough, a lot of it, if you have a look at some of that community feedback, and I think it's made a big difference. I will also note that there were a lot of comments regarding the need for actions to back up the framework, and this is going to be extremely important for us to develop a meaningful action plan, so that this isn't just words on a piece of paper. We need to follow it up with action. So that will be another process, and I'd really encourage all of those who provided feedback to engage with us to help us shape a really meaningful action plan that delivers outcomes. I'll leave it to my fellow councillors to have their say on this one.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. Councillor Mansfield certainly explained it well, and I endorse her comments, especially by the work done by the officers and the community in producing this important document. And listening to what Tom said just before, of course, there has been good community engagement, and the document has improved through that engagement. And there's no doubt that social equities continue to be a risk factor for many in our community. Understanding the long-term structural, economic and cultural barriers and bringing these issues under the umbrella of a social equity framework mitigates those risks. And we do have increasing numbers of people in our region who are not getting a fair go, sometimes from the beginning of their lives and through no fault of their own. And so it's been very important to this council, as indicated by our setting equity principles back in 2017. And so it will set the stage to assist us in strengthening our work and identifying those people, those population groups who require additional support and assistance. And it's our duty to a thriving community to give careful consideration to minority groups and their needs in order to provide social justice. And there are, as the document mentioned, there are basic enablers to social equity, such as fairness, access, voice, participation, inclusion and empowerment. And this social equity framework tries to deal with these matters and these enablers so that when designing and implementing programs, we always consider and align them not only with the community needs, but with the minority groups who are part of our community and who should never be overlooked. And there are many groups, as the document explains well, that they don't always stand alone, but they lie in an intricate, interactive web. For example, the disabled person may well have other challenges such as ethnic origin, socio-economic situation and geographical location. So once again, I commend the work done by our officers and the community on this excellent document, which has now received input from many stakeholder groups, and I also commend the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Any other councillors wish to comment? Councillor Aiken, please.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Sullivan. Look, this is a high-level aspirational policy document from Council, and it's actually pretty good. We're challenging ourselves to have a go at doing it. I mean, ultimately what we're saying is that we want to ensure fair and equitable access to all city services and facilities, and as two of the other councillors have already said, our infrastructure as well too, and regardless of your gender, age, background or ability. And I'll give you an example of a challenge that I'm dealing with at the moment is that I come from our disability sector. About 20% of our population actually have a disability, and about half of those people actually don't have an ability to ride a bike or an e-scooter, and Council actually is heavily investing in bike infrastructure. And if you look at this particular social equity framework, it actually talks about that we've got to give voices to people that where we're not creating safe spaces for everyone. We've got to have fairness in the way we distribute what we're actually doing, and so it is going to be a challenge for Council. So in other words, I mean, like if we adopt this framework, we have to put it over everything we're doing as a council. And we're going to have to understand that we can't prioritise able people over disabled people. We can't prioritise males over females. We can't prioritise educated people that can present a strong community engagement compared to those people who can't and don't have the education capacity. So this really is going to be a challenge for the council and us as a group as well too, to actually understand that we're going to have to start looking at all of our issues that are coming forward and actually looking at the social equity principles associated with everything that we're doing. We're not always going to be able to adhere to them, and the bike infrastructure is a good example. There's just a whole percentage of our community that will never be able to use that infrastructure. But I'm encouraged that we want to challenge ourselves as a council group, and also the officers to actually use this framework, and hopefully when we start getting reports back about the framework, we can have some good examples of how it has significantly influenced what we do, and it has given fairness and equity to what we're actually doing in council, in every single aspect of our responsibilities that we are undertaking as councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Any other councillors care to comment? Councillor Quintel.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Without reiterating all that's been said already, I do support all of the comments, particularly those of Councillor Anthony Aitken, that this is very aspirational, and that's a good thing, but we will now need to apply it to everything that we do, as we do with the sustainability framework, or should. And I think where we can't achieve the conformance with the framework, then that needs to be called out in future reports. I think it's really important that we acknowledge that. And I know you can't call out every different community group that's out there or every minority group, but one group that comes to mind for me, given that I chair the portfolio, is the veteran community and returned service people. They face enormous challenges when they come back from military service and try to re-engage back into the community. And pleasingly, through the portfolio, we're starting to make some small inroads, but hopefully this framework will actually help us apply that to that community as well, who definitely needs support and support from the city. So I do commend it, but we have got a lot of work to do at the moment. It's a lot of great words on paper. We now need to apply it in a practical manner.
Councillor Quintel. Any other councillors to comment? I'll throw it back to Councillor Mansfield to close.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank my fellow councillors for their comments. In particular, I think all of us have identified that in order for these, these words and concepts to have any meaning, we do need to take this seriously as a responsibility now to apply a social equity lens to every decision that we make. Ultimately, we can have all the frameworks and action plans and policies as we like, but the true change will only come about if social equity is embedded in all our decision-making around services, facilities, when we do our budgets, planning approvals. So it's going to be up to us as councillors and also the senior leaders in our organisation to really walk the talk on this one. But I'm very happy to support what is before us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. And with that, I'll put this to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Item is carried. Item number 2 this evening, 26 January, community engagement. Moved Councillor Mason, seconded Councillor Mansfield. Please, Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I take my role as Chair of the Killinjit Advisory Committee very seriously. I feel privileged to be advising councillors tonight on committee aspirations to engage with the whole community on the issue of Australia Day. And it is the committee's desire that we create a safe, open, inclusive environment for this conversation and to celebrate the spirit of Australia's nationhood and the love of our country together in unity. The Geelong's First Nations community is the largest in Victoria, about 3,500 people. Most of these people, historically displaced from all parts of Australia by colonisation, have lost much of their language, culture and traditional support networks, more recently as in the stolen generation. Many have a family history of being wards of state, in orphanages or other institutions. The Killinjit Advisory Committee represents a broad membership of this community. It includes First Nation representation from Barwon Health, Department of Family Fairness and Housing, the Department of Justice and others. 2 prominent organisations also contribute, the Wadawurrung Traditional Owners Corporation and the Wathaurong Aboriginal Cooperative. The Wadawurrung Traditional Owners Aboriginal Corporation was established in 2006 as a registered Aboriginal party and the authority for Wadawurrung country. They are the traditional custodians of land, water, skies and cultural heritage of the Wadawurrung Nation. One of their mandates is cultural education. The Wathaurong Aboriginal Cooperative is the first Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander community and gathering place organisation in Geelong and has been serving First Nation families for over 40 years in health, education, justice, family services, early childhood and community programs. It's a larger organisation with a social welfare mandate. Now, the Killinjit Advisory Committee, formerly Coringa, have worked closely with the city in developing a reconciliation action plan. We have successfully developed and implemented the first phase, Reflect. We are pleased that this was approved by the Reconciliation Australia, and we can now start co-designing the next stage, the innovative phase. This requires further work on developing partnerships and cultural understanding and is allied with the Victorian Truth and Justice Commission, ULUC, and the Uluru Statement from the Heart, in particular, voice, treaty and truth-telling. There's much truth to tell, and we have a long way to go on this journey. Sometimes the truth is very difficult to hear. Sometimes the truth is very difficult to hear. Truths that explain why an original population of 1 million upon the arrival of the First Fleet was reduced to 117,000 by Federation in 1901. Truths that massacres continued for 30 more years into the 1930s. Truths that Aboriginals did not get the vote until 1967, or that the concept of terra nullius wasn't erased until 1993. Truths that the Aboriginal First and Second World War veteran soldiers received no soldier settlement or other grants. The Killinjit Committee wants the broader community to understand that First Nation people, informed by their oral history, have long felt despair and alienation. They see an incomplete national history, a history of a nation one and free, as exclusive and sanitised, exemplified by post-colonial focused Australia Day. Now, 50 years later, we have the generous gift of the Uluru Statement from the Heart, calling for voice, truth and treaty. As a step on this journey, First Nation people want to have a conversation with the greater Geelong community about Australia Day and how it should be celebrated, how they feel included, or how they can feel included in the country and the community that they love. A carefully designed engagement where diversity of opinions will be professionally designed, safely facilitated, and will include all stakeholders will take about 6 months. This would allow just enough time to make proposals to Council before the next Australia Day in January the 26th, 2023. Mr Deputy Mayor, the Killinjit Advisory Committee is respectfully requesting this.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Very well timed. Councillor Mansfield, please.
I reserve my right.
Absolutely. Any other councillors around the chamber wish to make comment? Councillor Grisbeck, please.
Thank you. I'm supportive of this engagement with our community, both the First Nations community and then the broader community post that. It's been a long time coming, and I really feel it's time to listen, it's time to heal, and it's time for reconciliation. And it's a conversation at the moment. It's not a decision about going forward. Whilst some of the points have been covered by Councillor Mason tonight, I'm keen to ensure that everybody gets their chance to feedback on this topic. And I want to emphasise we need to be kind to each other. We need to make sure we don't stand for bad behaviour or conduct during this process. This is a discussion that needs to be had. It needs to be a safe space for all views, and I look forward to hearing the First Nations community views and the broader community views as well. This first section of our conversation is with First Nations people, as Councillor Mason has said, and I encourage all First Nations people to engage with the city on this process. And I'd like to thank the Killinjit Advisory Committee for bringing this to our attention. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillors? Councillor Aiken, please.
Thank you very much, Mr Acting Mayor Sullivan. I actually think it's a privilege that in Australia we have the world's oldest civilisation. The Australian Aborigine is actually a civilisation that's been around between 50 and 60,000 years. And I keep learning every single time we have engagement with a civilisation that's been on Earth far longer than what we have with most of us with our European Caucasian ancestry. And I've already mentioned it before, but the Uluru Statement of the Heart was an invitation from our First Nations people to walk with us in a movement of the Australian people for a better future. And what I want to tell the Geelong community tonight, this is some small steps by this council to actually participate in that walking process. On the weekend, we did have reconciliation in the park, which is a way for the broader community to walk with our local First Nation people to actually understand their culture more. And the resolution before us tonight is, I think, a very respectful way for us as a council to actually undertake a process to actually talk about an issue that is actually quite divisive in our community. We do need to acknowledge and work out how we participate in the 26th of January. It's not talking about Australia Day as a day, it actually is talking about the date. The date is officially an invasion date for people that come from First Nations background. It's actually when Europeans actually landed on Terras Australis and actually just took that land from a civilisation that had had it for nearly 50,000 years. And so we do have a responsibility to actually engage with those people to talk about how they actually believe we should acknowledge it and participate in it. we're not actually talking about that we want to start a political movement to change the date. We're adamant on that as a council. If the decision of the date is actually under the responsibility of the federal government, and if any federal government changes that date, I think this council and the community would support that. But this process is actually for us as a council group to talk to our local First Nations people and then our broader Geelong community about how we participate and how we acknowledge the 26th of January. And there are numerous examples of how other local government authorities have done it throughout Victoria and Australia. This process actually may even develop some unique ones for us in Geelong. And it will cause division in our community, and I hope we are mature enough in Geelong to actually have those discussions in a respectful but very authentic way as well too, that people can actually speak and say what they wish to and walk together in Geelong to actually make a very small change but a very important change about how we actually engage and we participate in the 26th of January as a community.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I want to begin by commending Councillor Mason on his words on this matter just earlier. And look, I'll be very interested to see where this recommendation takes this group. I'm giving it my full support and am excited on a personal level to be in a position and privilege to perhaps see change, be part of change, and be part of the momentum that's certainly gathering pace on this matter. As long as people can have a mature conversation about this, a conversation should be constructive. It's about talking, walking together. It's about education so that everyone can feel that connection together. So let's have the broader conversations with the community by bringing the community along on the journey. And that is, of course, after the proposed conversations with our First Nations people to begin with. Maybe after the weekend's elections result, some of the conversations and decisions may not be as difficult as we first thought. We will see. Yatni.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Any councillors care to comment? Councillor Kuntell, please.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I'll keep mine short. Yes, absolutely supportive of this. In fact, as Tom O'Connor said earlier on, it's about community engagement, whether it's the bike lanes, whether it's rejuvenation of City of Greater Geelong, the CBD, whether it's the tree planting that we heard about. This is all about community engagement, and if we don't listen to the community, the broader community, and we make decisions off our own bat, then we generally get them wrong. So I welcome the feedback and the input that we get from our engagement process. It's not only with First Nations people, it's actually with the broader Geelong community. We are asking the broader Geelong community to engage in this process. So it'll be very interesting to see what feedback we do get.
Councillor Kuntell. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Just as a former portfolio holder for Aboriginal Affairs, and I think I may have followed Councillor Kuntell in that role, but the experience of those 3 or 4 years being involved in those discussions back when Trevor Edwards was with us, and he was leading those discussions back then. So he's no longer with us, but I think he'd be very happy with the progress, albeit slow, but we are making progress in this particular space about engaging the community in what is a very important discussion. So I wholeheartedly support the next steps. Thank you.
Councillor Harwood. Any other councillors wish to make comment before I throw back to Councillor Mansfield? Councillor Mansfield, please.
Thank you, Acting Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Mason, for putting this motion forward and for your words earlier. As we've heard, 26th of January is not a date of celebration for many in our community, particularly our First Nations people, the first Australians. This is a day that marks the beginning of colonisation, land stolen, people massacred, children taken, cultures irreparably damaged, and the effects of that continue today. So it's impossible for such a day to be one that includes everyone. This is a national conversation, and it's part of a much broader national journey towards truth-telling, justice and treaty, but it is also a very local one. It's interesting hearing from Councillor Harwood that this was something that was on an agenda before my time on council, and certainly when I arrived on council almost 5 years ago, I took on the chair of the advisory committee role prior to Councillor Mason, and it was an item that was already on the agenda for us to consider. And look, while there were various views that were expressed about what COG could do, and we were looking at what other councils were doing in that space, what was made very clear was that for all representatives, that date represents a painful one for them, and they didn't feel included in community activities and celebrations. Many explained they actually left town for the day. And it's worthy of noting that there's no welcome to country performed by our traditional owners at any of our activities on the 26th of January. COG has undertaken a range of positive initiatives. We've heard about our first RAP. There's a whole lot of other great work that I think we've done and progress towards reconciliation, but 26th January has remained an issue on the agenda of that advisory committee, and that should really be telling us something, that it's been on the agenda for that long. We have a duty to listen to our community. Can I a little bit longer? And as a way forward, our committee has asked us to have an open conversation with the broader community about the 26th of January and what we can do as a council to make it more inclusive. We should not preempt the outcomes of this conversation, but I don't think we should avoid it either. This is an opportunity for us to show humility and respect, embark on this journey with our First Nations community as we walk towards reconciliation. No doubt it may involve some difficult discussions, and First Nations leaders have indicated that they will support and help us through this process and engage with the community. I believe that the greater Geelong community is more than ready to have this discussion. Reconciliation Week starts next week, and the theme of it is Be Brave, Make Change. I think it's time for us to heed that call.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Mason to close.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I do thank all my fellow councillors for their thoughtful contributions. And it has been a long time to develop and to come to this point. And I do thank everybody over those years that have even talked tonight that have contributed to getting to this point. And Mr Deputy Mayor, we have made great strides walking together in recent years. We have integrated Wadawurrung culture into many of our programs through co-design. We have NAIDOC Week. We've commissioned art and projections. We fly the Aboriginal flag, and we sponsor community events that take place on the 26th of January, including a citizenship ceremony as required by the federal government. Nevertheless, many issues remain raw in the memories of our First Nation people, and there are many more things to talk about. So as others have said, let's embark upon a conversation for the next 6 months, and let's accept the advice of our First Nation people so that they want to feel included in celebrating Australia, the country they love and have been part of over deep time, over more than 60,000 years. Other municipalities, we know, have already commenced reconciliation programs related to Australia Day. Municipalities such as our neighbours Ballarat, Shepparton and Surf Coast. Let us come up together with a celebration we can all enjoy. Let us, the multicultural inclusive city of design, the city of Greater Geelong with the largest Aboriginal population in the state, let us have a meaningful discussion. Let's put each other at ease. Let's undergo respectful, inclusive, safe sharing of views. Let's aim to peacefully resolve long-standing misunderstandings and injustices. Our First Nation people in Greater Geelong think it's the right time to do this. One more sentence. Perhaps through listening and thinking deeply together, we can come up with a creative solution in this our multicultural city of design, and we can walk together happily into the future.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. With that, I'll put this to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The motion is carried. We move on now to item 3 of our agenda, Blue Waters Lake Reserve Master Plan Draft, moved by Councillor Mason, and I'm happy to second that one as well as a fellow Bellarine Ward councillor. Councillor Mason, please.
Mr Deputy Mayor, Blue Waters Lake is a precious 7 hectares reserve loved by Ocean Grove locals, especially by the occupants of 100 surrounding properties. It's a natural lake with native vegetation and is the home of much wildlife, some of which are rare and threatened, such as the freckled duck, the Yarra pygmy perch and Latham's snipe. A narrow path surrounds it and there are some grassy patches used by picnickers. It also performs an important role, filtering stormwater before it makes its way to the Barwon River, part of our renowned Conowari-Ramsar wetland. Recently, flooding and wet weather have damaged the path, and ageing exotic trees coming to the end of their life don't contribute well to the health of the natural environment. Staged removal is planned, and they will be replaced with indigenous species more appropriate to supporting wildlife habitat and improving biodiversity resilience. Similarly, an ephemeral wetland zone is planned for expansion so that inflowing stormwater will be better purified. Once again, I commend officers for their creative work that they've done in environmental and biodiversity enhancement, while seizing the opportunity to improve the water quality of the lake and to reduce woody and high-threat weeds. They've also given careful attention to improving public amenity, park benches and seating, path and parking upgrades, restriction of dogs to the reed and sedge wetland while allowing underlead access elsewhere, and also interpretive signage and cultural heritage. So this will go out for 60 days further community consultation, and will no doubt discover further improvements that can be made. I do support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. You've said it all quite well. We're looking for public comment on this one. Even more so than we already had. As you said, this has had consists of already 178 contributions from the community already to get to this stage. This is such a fantastic, almost hidden gem, really, Blue Waters Lake Reserve. But managing this area is very important because it is significant, and we'd like to keep it going into the future. And very much a massive part of that, as you said, was replacing, getting some much more indigenous species of vegetation there to maximise the wildlife habitat for the rare and threatened species which visit this area. So very keen to second this, and looking forward to the community feedback which we receive. Happy to throw any other councillors who wish to comment. I'll throw back to Councillor Mason to close. Councillor Mason.
Nothing further to add, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. With that, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The motion is carried. All right, item number 4, Ocean Grove Sporting Infrastructure Plan, draft as well, going out for community consultation. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mason. And I'm happy to second that one as a ward councillor as well. Councillor Mason.
I've still got a voice. Mr Deputy Mayor, the Ocean Grove, a declared growth zone, has indeed undergone rapid growth since the last sporting infrastructure plan was declared in 2010. A fully representative project reference group has actively participated in producing this plan, and it's got 18 representatives. These include all tennis, netball, football, soccer, cricket, baseball, badminton, pigeon, pickleball and calisthenics clubs, 2 schools and 3 community associations. So there's been comprehensive engagement on this. And it also responds to female participation demands, strategies and other policies, such as in our social infrastructure plan Generation 1, 2020 to 23. So the draft plan considers 6 reserves: Arthur Powell Reserve and other reserves, Colandina, Devlins Road, Memorial Reserve, Shell Road Reserve and Wallington Reserve. It then considers the sporting and recreation activities conducted at each of these reserves, and a lot of work's gone into how to develop and share all of these facilities, including relocating the Surfside Waves Soccer Club from Shell Road Reserve to Devlins Road, which is Kingston Reserve, converting existing soccer pitches at Shell Road Reserve to a second oval to create the reserve as the home for football, netball and cricket in Ocean Grove. Also upgrading the hall at Memorial Reserve, enhancing this for more informal use and maintaining the ability to host junior sport, football and cricket, and developing master plans for Shell Road and Colandina Reserves and Wallington Reserve. Other key facility developments include developing a fit-for-purpose pavilion and gender-neutral change rooms at Wallington and Memorial Reserves. Reconstructing 2 public tennis courts into compliant courts at Arthur Powell Reserve. The plan is consistent with our aims of sustainable growth operations, improved opportunities for female sports participation and improved community access to facilities and open space. I applaud the work done by the officers for their creative and extensive consultative work which they've done with the community to ensure equity and adequate service levels to the whole community. This plan also complies with Sporting Association guidelines, and they are realistic within the resource constraints universally designed for use by people of all ages, gender, ability and cultural backgrounds. Benefits extend to the community programs and informal recreation across all parts of the reserve as part of this study. And so it's to go out for community consultation. And once again, we'll expect further improvements to be made, and I'm sure that various things will be noted, such as some of our statistics are based on 2019, and I'm very much aware that clubs such as the Wallington Cricket Club, in its memberships increased from 35 to 167 during COVID, with a balance of something like an increase of 48 females. So we will gather more information from the community, but I think there's been excellent work done, and thank the officers for that work, and I commend this to go out for community consultation.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. I've spoken to that one extremely well. This is going out for a period of 6 weeks for community consultation, and it is a vitally important document for the people in the Bellarine and the Ocean Grove region. An area which has had incredible growth over the last 10 years, since the last report was done in 2010. And with it, we have had an actual explosion of young families, children, participants in local organised sport which use these facilities, and it's been shown to us, through COVID, most of all, how valuable these open spaces are, and coming out of it, just how important it is that these areas are well utilised. When we're seeing clubs and associations whose junior programming is doubling, tripling in a couple of years, the uptake of, or us being able to provide capacity for, more female engagement in traditionally male-dominated sports through providing female-friendly change rooms, gender-neutral change rooms, we really have a lot of work to do, and this document very much helps outline that and gives us a plan the way forward. So we're all very passionate about this in the Bellarine, and I'm very keen to see what the community feedback is. So I'm happy to go for councillors. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Mason, for your comments on this. This particular report is of a passion to me, having spent many of my informative years on the side of a cricket pitch out in Wallington, and seen the progress of such sports like cricket out in that Bellarine side. And I think what this report will be good when it comes back after community consultation is to identify that the growth has been exponentially what would you say, boomed over the last few years. And I think, you know, from my perspective, having the female cricket team, for example, at Wallington Cricket Club, and they've been amazing to get that female team up and running. 100 kids on a Friday night doing Milo cricket. What we've seen is that these facilities are not anywhere near standard for what we would say for these sports, let alone having a toilet or running water in a storeroom that has been changed into a female change room just to accommodate female cricket. What we're seeing that we hope that this this document will be highly subscribed in terms of feedback through the community, and we look forward to making sure that these numbers are corrected in the next version. So in other words, the current usage and the current number of members, these numbers are quite old, 2019 numbers, and I appreciate we've had COVID in between, but we need to get these numbers right to make sure this document is future-proofed. I think we would... We did see quite a good engagement from different parts of that community during the budget process, and we look forward to hearing from all of those community sections, even including the Surfside Waves Soccer Club, another fantastic club that has amazing growth that we need to cater for. So this document needs to be future-proofed. I would hope over the next 6 weeks we'll get that feedback from the community. But thanks to the Bellarine Ward councillors for their advocacy in this process, and I look forward to sitting alongside watching the female cricket at Wallington and them almost succeeding this year in a premiership.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Do other councillors care to comment? Councillor Murray?
You don't have to sit alongside and watch, Councillor Grisbeck.
Supervise.
The women's sport now, it's open for all ages, and the participation is strong. Look, I just wanted to comment just on, it's another master plan that's come before us, and you know, it's a little bit get in the queue somewhat. Certainly, I just over the last couple of months, there was Barwon Heads. We certainly had Drysdale some time ago. We had Port Arlington, and now another master plan. And they're great. They guide what work needs to be done, and it builds community expectations, which is also good. But of course, it's the funding of these master plans, you know, going forward that will always be the issue. Excellent work, another great master plan, and as you say, we'll go out for further consultation and come back, and I'm sure will then be endorsed, but it's then the hard work begins.
Absolutely. Well noted, Councillor Murray. Any other councillors wish to comment? If not, I'll throw back to Councillor Mason to close.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think all's been said. Certainly in such growth areas, exponential growth creates strains and stresses all over the place, and it's really amazing how, for example, the Wallington Cricket Club has grown so much just over the last 2 years. Nevertheless, hearing also what Councillor Murray said, we've got the plan, we need to implement it. We need to find the funding, of course, and there will be a queue, and the expectations do need to be managed and understood by all, how everyone must take their turn, I suppose. And we also have to take into account our social equity principles, which we've already discussed tonight, social equity framework. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you all for your contributions.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. With that, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The motion is carried. Item number 5 is the Indented Head Woodland Nature Reserve Master Plan draft, moved by Councillor Mason. I'm happy to second that one as well. Councillor Mason.
I hope I'm not putting everyone to sleep, Mr Deputy Mayor, but this is really another visionary and painstaking task that's been undertaken by council officers in reaching a position where we can propose to endorse the draft Indented Head Woodland, Nature Reserve Master Plan for stakeholder and community engagement for another 30 days. And I was pleased with such strong community support when we declared the reserve on the 11th of June 2019. Here, land was exchanged with the developer to achieve this, and the city agreed to prepare a master plan for the reserve in partnership with the Wadawurrung traditional owners and the community. And of course, we now have that plan. Like most areas in our landscape, this has been severely degraded and modified by land clearing, exotic grasses and weeds over the last 185 years. Nevertheless, it retains some significant environmental values and is interspersed by a wetland-woodland mosaic containing large old trees, microlina native grassland and a small creek. There has already been significant community engagement in developing this plan. It includes, which has included the Indented Head Community Association, Friends of Indented Head Woodland, the Wadawurrung traditional owners and the broader Indented Head community. And the draft plan provides a vision for the reserve and outlines many desired outcomes, such as an all-ability walking access into the reserve and the provision of seating, boardwalks and other facilities fostering community and social wellbeing. Outcomes will enhance threatened ecological communities and biodiversity values. Woodland, wetland and migratory species will be further protected under our international treaties, such as the Ramsar Treaty and others that some are not so familiar with, the Jamba Treaty and the Chamba Treaty, the Japanese Australia Migratory Birds Agreement and the China-Australia Migratory Bird Agreement. Outcomes will be mitigated, will mitigate the threats of pest plants and animals such as herbaceous and woody weeds, rabbits and foxes. And I'm pleased this is going out for further work.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Very well said. Look, this is an incredible 13.6 hectare site at the back of Indented Head. It's so important that we take these steps to preserve one of the last patches of the endangered plains grassy woodland on the Bellarine area. These plans just look astounding. What this area will look like in fruition will be such an environmentally friendly, engaging, beautiful spot which will really actually add to the ecotourism of the Bellarine Peninsula as well. I also note, as Councillor Mason said, the great community input in this, and I do note Ingrid Novosel here in the crowd today from the Indented Head Community Association. Very passionate, very active in that as well. But as was just said on the last topic as well, it's great for us to have these fantastic plans, but we have to make them happen. And then that is vitally important. We've seen so many things that we do great plans on and that in the past have been followed up. But something like this is an asset to the region on so many levels, and not just the Bellarine, but to the entire region that the City of Great covers. So I'm very, very happy to second this motion and very looking forward to great work that's going to be done on this in future. Any councillors wish to comment? Sorry, Councillor Contell, I can't see that. If not, I'm happy to throw back to Councillor Mason to close.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan, and I do acknowledge the presence of Ingrid Novosel here tonight, who's made a contribution, a significant contribution to this over a long period. And this significant conservation reserve will permanently improve the Indented Head environment, and I'm really pleased also that there's a Trust for Nature covenant which has been applied to this, so it will be protected not only by council but by this covenant forever. And it will require informal, there will be opportunities for informal recreational space, nature trails and community wellbeing. It's a demonstration site for Indigenous regeneration techniques and a vibrant native wildlife and bird species habitat, which include the growling grass frogs, pobblebonks, echidnas, and Latham snipe. It'll have ecological focus for visitor experience, massive remnant red gum trees, and creek and red gum ecology, and a significant freshwater sedge wetland. So, with further community consultation, yet again, there'll be further improved outcomes for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. And with that, I'll put this to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The item is carried. Item 6, Amendment C387 GGEE, Proposed Rezoning, Jetty Road Urban Growth Area Stage 2, Curlewis. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mason, seconded Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Mason.
Mr Deputy Mayor, this amendment is commonly known as the Jetty Road Urban Growth Area Stage 2, Curlewis. It's commonly known that there's been a long and consistent history that this 149 hectares of land has been scheduled for development. Beginning in 1983 and continuing with structure and growth plans through 1992, 1996, 2006, 2013. The Bellarine Localised Planning Statement 2015, the Distinctive Areas and Landscapes Declaration 2019, and the COG Settlement Strategy 2020. All of those documents, there's that long history. During this time, lessons have been learned and planning policies have been strengthened. There will be improved housing diversity, improved connectivity, bike and walking paths, community facilities, management of stormwater drainage and outfall, and there will be efficient delivery of the duplication of Tivoli Drive and Greenvale Drive. It's important to note that the DAL reaffirmed this area as a growth area, and that the SPP related to the DAL is yet to be finalised, and final building regulations will emanate from this once finalised by the state government. It's also understood that all landowners have been made aware of these intentions over time or when they recently purchased their properties. And so the process as planned still continues. The time has come to further allow orderly development and to rezone rural living and farm zone land to general residential zone 1. Stage 2 of the growth area follows the near total build out of Jetty Road Stage 1, which has delivered over 1,700 house lots and associated infrastructure, the Bayview Central Shopping Centre and New Griggs Creek and Foreshore Public Open Space. Stage 1 was rezoned in December 2019 by Amendment C152, and a development contributions plan overlay was later applied by Amendment 230. Because the land is in fragmented ownership and rezoning is supported by planning controls to require the form of future use and development to be shown on the plan, and for the levying of developer contributions to deliver shared infrastructure. The planning controls will be structured to require early developer delivery of Tivoli Drive and Greenville Drive north of the Bellarine Rail Trail as one single project. Mr Deputy Mayor, I support the recommendation, including the request to the Minister of Planning to authorise the preparation and exhibition of this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. It's very hard to follow Councillor Mason. He's very informative of his view. I think I might just add one further point, that if tonight's recommendation is supported, the public exhibition process would include a mail out to those directly affected and nearby landowners, and also some notices in the local media as well. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Other councillors to comment? Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. We probably should have had this meeting in the Bellarine with all these Bellarine reports, and might have saved some time for the gallery. That's about it, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Very well noted. I'll just add the quick notes. As noted, this has been something that's been coming on for a very long time. It's no surprise Stage 2 has always been incorporated in this larger precinct and will bring along a lot of vital infrastructure. Often we ask Bellarine, more councillors have noted in the past that it's been a shame that the Bellarine was identified for such growth many, many years ago. Hindsight is 2020, but we're very much looking forward to this being sort of the last development of the stage here, and therefore that'll bring us our town boundaries to fulfilment really for this region. So very much looking forward to that coming into effect and then seeing the benefits of that in time to come. But if no other councillors wish to make comment, happy to throw back to Councillor Mason to close. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor, and I'm very pleased that the Bellarine Community trust us so much, and they're not here to ensure we're doing the right thing. But anyway, be that as it may, it's really quite exciting that Tivoli Road and Greenvale Road is going to be expedited and is duplicated in the soonest possible time, relieving a lot of stress in that community. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. With that, I'm happy to put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The item is carried. Item number 7 this evening, Northern Aquatic and Community Hub gas to electricity conversion. Do I have mover Councillor Aiken, seconded by Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Aiken.
Just before I do speak, for those people at home, it's just a pure coincidence that Councillor Mason actually moved all those last 5 items on the agenda. So you'll actually probably see a different a change from this point onwards, where we'll share the rest of the agenda amongst all the council group. With that introduction, it's my pleasure to actually talk about this issue. What we're actually doing tonight is committing additional $4 million towards the Nash project. And why are we doing that? Because council actually wishes to convert this particular project from gas to electricity. And as has always been with this project, it's a challenge for us. But importantly, I really want to thank the council group for their support for this project, and hopefully we do get the support of the council group tonight as well too. Look, financially it probably doesn't stack up spending $4 million on converting from gas to electricity, because in fact our savings we estimate are going to be about $150,000 per year. But importantly, we've actually been able to identify that it's going to actually result in 17,000 tonnes less of greenhouse gas emissions with this particular project. And this has been a really good example about how this council group is committed to actions that actually match their targets about being a carbon neutral community. The council is making a significant financial investment tonight, if the majority of councillors support it, to actually say that this project that was costing us $61.6 million, that was a generational change for our northern suburbs, is actually deserving of making a decision such as this tonight. And that decision is that technology has changed so much since 2018, when we first did our original design plans for the Nash. And that change in technology means we're presented with a unique opportunity here to actually create this facility to not only be the best community hub that we have in the whole of Geelong, but to actually also be a showcase about our commitment towards being a sustainable council and a sustainable community. We are a council that is a leader. The decision tonight is an example of that leadership, and this project certainly is deserved to actually get another tag put onto it. And as I said, this tag is that the Northern Aquatic and Community Hub will actually be a showcase to the community about electricity in terms of powering everything associated with the life that we now do live in Australia. It is important to note to the community that it's only just recently that Council has fully switched all of its electricity across to emission-free renewables. So we are no longer, every light and every piece of electricity that is actually used by the City of Greater Geelong is becoming from renewable sources. And this project, if we make a decision to switch from gas to electricity, we'll be able to use that particular contract that we have in place to ensure that renewable energies are actually powering Geelong for the future and powering facilities that only a few years ago people thought could never be powered by electricity. We fell into a belief that fossil fuels and gas was actually the only way we could actually heat large aquatic facilities, but this project will actually show there are new technologies available. There are opportunities available for us in the community, and I look forward to the opening and the switching on of the first fully electric aquatic facility in the Geelong region.
Councillor Aiken. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And Councillor Aiken has said what needs to be said, so I'll let time for others. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
The councillors wish to make comment? Nelson, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I was certainly supportive of this project when it first came to council. It was going to cost us around $20 million. It was pitched to us from officers saying, well, it's $20 million from us and we'll get the rest from state and feds, and that's hardly happened. We've only got 8 from the Vic government and 8 from the federal government. And then we were told we were going to get $10 million from the Building Better Regions Fund, and we didn't get that either. And now we're asking for another $4 million. So our ask is up to around $50 million now of our budget. $50 million. This pool is sending us broke. We haven't even put a shovel in the ground yet, have we? We put a shovel in the ground? We have. Okay, so we've turned some sod, and it's costing us $50 million already. Councillor Aiken said that the technology change in the last 30 years has been exponential, and it certainly has. I'm not sure what's happened in the last 12 months, because 12 months ago we were building it out of electricity, and now we're doing it the other way around, of gas, and now we're doing electricity. So something's happened in the last 12 months. I don't know what that is. But if it's changing so much, this project is going to take us 30 years to pay off, this extra $4 million. Surely technology will change again, and we'll be able to fund something a lot cheaper than this $4 million, the extra ask. I'm sure if Councillor Aiken put his accountant hat on, he would say this doesn't stack up. I'm sure the community hasn't been consulted. Everyone's been talking about community consultation tonight, and I don't see any community consultation whatsoever about this extra $4 million spend. It's an extra, 8-odd%, and it's a lot of money to pay off, 30 years to pay off this extra $4 million. And yes, I support the project as a whole, but as Councillor Aiken said, technology has changed over the last few years. It has, and I'm sure it'll change again over the next 30 years. I don't think going to all electricity is the way to go, and certainly with $4 million with no community consultation is just not acceptable. Thanks.
Councillor Nelson. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I guess one thing that's changed in the last 12 months is that Council's endorsed our climate change response plan and committed to some pretty ambitious targets for our own operations, including net zero by 2025. Not that far away, 3 years. We've committed to that. We've also endorsed a sustainability framework which, is about looking at the cost of what we do more than just in financial terms, but looking at the broader impact of the decisions that we make socially, environmentally, not just the dollar figures. So I'm actually delighted that we are having this conversation. To be completely honest, I wouldn't have necessarily seen us in this position a few years ago. This is a real sign of how far we've come, that we are talking about making a serious investment, taking a bit of a gamble. We're going to be, people, if we endorse this, people will come from all places to look at our example of an aquatic facility, not just because of all the other great things about it, but this element in particular. We don't have a lot of time. We need to be moving away from fossil fuels. This is a great example of leadership. I'd also caution that, you know, a lot of our estimates around the figures for this are based on the current price of gas. We know that that is very, you know, it's very possible that that will change. It's already becoming more expensive even just over the last few years. We'll also be faced with a policy context where gas is being phased out, whether, you know, we have a commitment from other levels of government that it is you know, I don't necessarily agree with this, but it's transition fuel, so it will be redundant technology in time. So I think we build this right from the get-go. We build a future, you know, a building that's designed to stand up to future challenges, but we also, you know, we do what we've committed to do, and you know, seriously commit to net zero by 2025.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Do councillors care to comment? Councillor Contell, please.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, look, I will support the request and the report that's come to Council tonight, as we have done the whole way along with this project, because we identified and acknowledged how important it was, and we needed to get on to support that side of Geelong and that side of the community. But however, as Councillor Nelson has said, you know, from an economic perspective, this is a significant investment on top of a $40-odd million investment that we've already made. But perhaps tapping into the back of the comments that Councillor Murray made earlier on, that since the election, maybe these decisions will be a bit easier in the future. And maybe now that Geelong is fully red and that we have the member for Corio holding the second highest position in the federal parliament, and we have a state government that's also Labor, then it's upon us to make sure that we certainly lobby very, very hard, which I'm sure that Councillor Aitken and Councillor Grisbeck will do, but we now need to hold these politicians to account. There is no hiding from the position of opposition. We need to now invest significantly more in the north, and we need federal and state Labor governments to support us with that, because we have certainly been carrying the can and been doing our heavy lifting. It's now important that the red side of politics, both federal and state, support us with this in the future.
Councillor Contell, well said. Other councillors comment? Councillor Mason.
Excuse me. Just very quickly, I'd just like to say that I support it too. And sometimes I can't usually use this old saying, it's not quite right, penny wise and pound foolish. But really, it's going to cost us more in the long run anyway. And I think that it's very, very timely that we recognised, if we like to say it this way, a mistake that we've made in earlier on in the planning, and we've been able to redress it now rather than in the future. So I just support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. There's no other comments. I'll throw back to Councillor Aiken to close.
Thank you very much. Look, just two comments because of the debate that's actually occurred thus far. The issue about, look, Council can afford to actually make this decision, and I acknowledge that lots of people can't afford to make a decision to actually convert from gas to electricity, and I personally probably are one of those as well too in my own family home environment, and we will need subsidies and support from governments to be able to make the infrastructure change. What is important is that the Council can afford to do this at this point of time, and I'm very proud that we are looking like we will support this major change. And it will be quite a symbol for the rest of Geelong to actually understand what is happening in terms of the rapid transformation away from fossil fuels. And the second comment that was raised by Councillor Contell, on behalf of Councillor Gresbeck and I, we are extremely proud that our local member is actually the Deputy Prime Minister of Australia. That's actually the first time it's ever happened in Australian politics in Geelong region, to have a leader that's actually the Deputy Prime Minister of Australia. Kylie and I have already expressed our support and congratulations to Richard Marles, and we certainly do wish to take up the challenge and the opportunity that presents to us in the north. And I look forward to bringing back to this chamber some successful outcomes from the Deputy Prime Minister and the strong representation that Kylie and I have had for the last 5 years for the northern suburbs of Geelong.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. With that, I'm happy to put this to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? The item is carried. Thank you. Item 8 on the agenda, the 2022-2023 grant guidelines. Moved by Councillor Aiken, seconded by Councillor Harwood. Councillor Aiken.
Thank you very much, Acting Mayor Sullivan. This is falls under the portfolio responsibility of finance as the chair, and this is our 2022-23 grants program. The council group officers and the community have actually provided some input into our existing grants program. Tonight we're actually announcing $4.13 million worth of grants that will go on to public release on the 4th of June. And there's about $3 million available in capital grants and $1.13 million worth of other grants associated with our grant program in Geelong. I had a look. This is actually one of the most generous grant programs in the whole of local government in Australia, so congratulations to the City of Greater Geelong. It continues our commitment to invest in our community, and there are some changes in our grants that we're announcing tonight. One of those is the announcement of a new grant program, which is our essentially our climate change sustainability grants, which is $100,000. So that's a new grant stream that we will be releasing after tonight as a council. We're fine-tuning the speed at which we actually process the grants. We're looking at the grant program to actually try to fast-track the smaller grants so they get into the community's hands quicker than what they are at the present time as well too. And importantly, we've actually endorsed our commitments in terms of our capital grants program to make it available for both private and public land availability. An important thing and principle that we're entrenching in tonight's grant program, that this is a competitive program. So what we are attempting to do is actually ask people to apply for those grants and then rank them competitively against the other applications that we receive as well too. And we want to give some guidance to the community. We're all experiencing rapid supply and labour cost expansion. We're encouraging the community, when you do put your grant applications in, that you actually take that into consideration with your grant application that you're presenting. And an example is that we're encouraging the community, if you do put in lighting applications, that you should look at your substation and electrical connections that occur. You should actually probably put in a 20% contingency associated with that particular project. So we are learning ourselves as a council about how to best manage the limited resources we have available, but we're also teaching the community about how to invest in itself as well too. So I commend the funding programs that we're presenting tonight. The recommendations and guidelines are further fine-tuning, and we will continue to fine-tune them as a council group when we receive feedback from our recipients and also those who aren't successful in receiving those grants. And I look forward to the $4.1 million circulating into the community as quickly as possible and investing to make Geelong a clever and creative community.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Well said. Councillor Harwood, please.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. I just concur with Councillor Aiken's comments. They're all spot on, and obviously a substantial amount of money being invested into the community. We give the Geelong Advertiser a lot of reason to put us on the front page, and this is one. we should be on the front page tomorrow with this sort of announcement that we're making for the community. The diversity of the financial capacity that's available is the reach through the community is as good as I've ever seen it on my time on council. It's the most amount of money I've ever seen spent in this particular area. So to me, front page for the Addy, I'll be surprised if we don't see it there.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Councillor Sullivan. Yeah, I think that these grants are tremendous, and they certainly support a lot of needy groups, but can I just openly implore on our officers and all those that are involved in assessing the grant submissions, and also those that are encouraging of community groups to submit grant applications, that we please apply, what we spoke about today, which is the social equity framework. We've got so many small groups out there, some of them where English is not their first language, many where they just don't have the capabilities to put forward a submission that we may consider acceptable and professional. We need to help those small groups because they can continue to fall between the cracks, and then what happens is they just lose enthusiasm, lose the confidence, and in the end don't apply for the grants. I will be certainly reaching out to the community groups that I engage with, and many of them are migrant groups, to apply for these grants, but I do ask that all those involved in assessing and assisting these groups, please do all that we can to help them succeed. We want them to succeed, so let's do all that we can to help them succeed so that we can spend the money, but spend it broadly with a lot of breadth in those community groups that are out there.
Thank you very much, Councillor Contell. The councillors like to comment? Not happy to throw back to Councillor Aiken to close.
Nothing further to add, Acting Mayor Sullivan.
Councillor Aiken. With that, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Item is carried. Item number 9 is the Waste and Resource Recovery Strategy Progress Report, moved by Councillor Harwood, seconded by Councillor Maloney. Councillor Harwood, please.
Mr. Sullivan. Thank you. It's interesting to note that we're going to receive this report biannually, so in other words, every 2 years, on such an important topic. So it might be something that we look at about actual reporting timeframes around our waste and resource recovery strategies. I guess these are well documented, well discussed, high community agenda items in relation to any waste and resource recovery strategies. It's an all community buy-in that we need and constantly need. There's no quick fix. We see constant changes in our environment, and one of the greatest threats that we do have is how we treat our waste, how we collect it, how we treat it, and how we continue to gather our waste. We are a very high-consuming society, and to that end, our waste goes up with it. We have population growth issues through our region, and with that, we will see the same increase in waste as a result. So I guess it's a constant battle. We see our landfill levies continue to increase, which only de-incentivises people to actually deal with their waste properly. We don't see enough funding coming back as a result of that high cost to, again, help engage in community programs to deal with waste. I guess that's also, a well-made comment over time. And I guess it's really about encouraging the community to understand that when you are finished with whatever waste you have, it just doesn't disappear miraculously from the environment. It actually has to go somewhere in some capacity, and what we do with it is the next big problem. And this is where we need to get smarter. In other words, quite obviously, we need to be reducing our waste and increasing our capacity to deal with it, which is an issue that we're constantly battling with. I have digressed. I should have acknowledged the number of matters that the council are engaged in. They are listed there in relation to the food waste collection at Lara, a modern reusable nappy program, subsidised compost bins, recycling building materials that are being trialled in road construction projects, which is quite advanced. I think it's bitumen and plastic, a mix thereof. So there's a number of great strategies being done, but I don't think we can shy away from the overall problem that waste presents to our community. I'll leave it there for the moment, but I think the point's made. Thank you.
Very well said. Councillor Harwood. Councillor Maloney, please.
Thank you. With regard to this strategy, I think essentially this aims to help educate all of us as to what we've been up to and what we're going to be doing in the future. One of the key things that I've noticed is a lot of people come to me and say, I didn't know that there's a nappy program. I wasn't sure that there was a food waste collection trial. And I think that's either a point for us to note that we need to get out and educate constituents as to what is available out there for you, but also the expansion of those education programs that are on waste management. So this often sees up household recycling snafus reduced, which is great, but also the use of organic material in our gardens and in compost bins and worm farms, etc. So I think as this progresses, Councillor Harwood is right. Biannually is probably not enough of an update for people who are passionate in this area like myself. And I think that the waste programs are recognised in the Keep Australia Beautiful Awards, which are great, but we really need to keep an eye on this. And even though several councillors, including myself, are across the circular economy portfolio, it's really important that we progress by letting constituents know what is available to them, what is out there to minimise that impact on the environment. And also with respect to the hard waste collection service, there is an astounding amount of individuals who don't know this exists. So that's something that I think that perhaps all of us councillors could do to propagate that in the community so that everyone knows what's going on. But really great to see the progress we've made in this report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Maloney. Education is definitely one of the most important aspects of the uphill battle we have ahead of us. Councillor Mansfield, please.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Look, I think this report highlights some, as we've heard, some real success stories for the City of Greater Geelong, with respect to waste and some initiatives we're undertaking. We've been analysing the kinds of waste we're collecting from our residents and really looking to target problem areas. In particular, we've talked about food waste. We know that makes up a huge percentage of general waste, and it is an obvious avenue to pursue. It's something that can easily be turned into something useful, and it going into landfill causes a lot of harm, particularly in terms of methane emissions. So that's a great initiative there. The cloth nappies program is great. That's something we've heard from the community for a long time. Big supporter of that one. And we've won awards, as has been pointed out, for some of the programs that we're undertaking, but there's only so much that council can do. This has got to be all levels of government working together to create a truly circular economy. What we're really doing is dealing with the end point here. We're doing a bit to prevent waste going in the bin, but ultimately we're still trying to figure out what to do with our waste. We are really dependent on other levels of government implementing meaningful policies around things like packaging, what products are made of, helping us design things at the outset to reduce the damaging sort of wasteful output at the end. We're also going to have some serious decisions to make as a council around this in this particular area, given we've committed to a zero waste target. It's pretty ambitious. Zero waste to landfill. We've got to figure out how we're going to do that. What are we going to do with all that waste? There's still a long way to go, but I commend the successes in this program, and I think we're all certainly interested in and motivated to continue doing what we can to reduce waste and make more out of the products that we do have.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I was heartened to see in this report the increased food organics that might be diverted from our new city building in a collection in the new Warwick Niall building in mid-2022. So I'll be really interested to see how that works through our employees in that particular new building. I think the hard waste trial is in this document it says it's been reviewed and it demonstrates the benefits, and I think what we've seen is more take-up of the hard waste collection, definitely in the northern suburbs. From Councillor Aiken and I have definitely seen that uptick, but what we have also seen is there is still some dumping around many places in the northern suburbs that I see every day. And what I would encourage officers to do is continue that education to the community. In fact, write it on every single letter that you send out or every single newsletter that there is this opportunity to use the hard waste collection. You don't need to dump these things anymore. We've got 2 mattress collections a year. We've got 2 hard waste collections. We've got all of those things that are available to us. I don't understand why we still see dumping across the municipality. The other thing I was pleased to see is that we're continuing to advocate to the state government for a container deposit scheme. We're hoping that'll come sooner rather than later. We have offered City of Greater Geelong as a trial site because we can be the place to trial these things with a wide-ranging mix within our community to use that particular service. So why wouldn't we be one of the trial sites to make sure that we can do that? The other thing that I've seen in here that we are working with developers to reduce building waste, and I'd encourage the officers to continue to advocate the building industry and government to reduce the polystyrene waffle pods and that go into the concrete structure when you build a house. And on windy days, they have been strewn across our beautiful gardens and parks and lakes, and they cause an absolute destruction when they break down into little white, it looks like snow across a lake at some point. So we'll continue to try and advocate to the state government to have strategies in place to make sure that those waffle pods don't blow away on a windy day of a building site. I know out at Lara West and I think at Armstrong Creek we've seen that, and council has been out there collecting those particular pieces of rubbish, but it's very hard to collect those tiny minuscule white dots all over the community, and we can do things to make sure that that doesn't happen. We can lock them up, we can put them away so that they don't go blowing away. But I think this strategy is a good progress report, and I'd like to see some further advocacy in that space. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Any councillors care to comment? If not, happy to throw back to Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. I'll finish on using an opportunity to just let the councillors know and the general community know that we're actually losing our waste board. We had the Bowen Waste Management Group for a long time, and that was they were amalgamated into new groups. We became the Bowen Southwest Waste Resource Recovery Group, and I think there was a number around the state. And now they have all been amalgamated, and basically we'll have Recycling Victoria. So we have really lost a lot of the community voice in the way that we deal with waste, what we do with waste, and how as a community we join together to be smarter with waste. I just make that point that there's so much emphasis being put on what waste means to us as a community, yet we're winding back to almost zero about the community input into what we'd like to do in our education processes through schools and communities. And I just want to make that point that I don't think the current government of the day has got this right about reducing the community voice in relation to waste resources and waste processes. So I guess we watch with interest in the future. I know we have the circular economy being rolled out and container deposit schemes on the horizon, but we need more than that. We still need to keep the community educated and engaged at every opportunity in this discussion. and we have lost that, I think, in a sense. So I just make that point. But again, congratulations to our city services group and the awards that have been allocated and no doubt earned. But we have a long way to go with our waste resource and recovery. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. With that then, I'll be putting this to the vote. All those in favour? Bacon? Ali? Favour? Yep, thank you. All those against? No, thank you. All right, the item is carried. Thank you.
I'm freezing.
Thank you. Item number 10, Geelong Major Events Committee 2022-2026 External Member Positions. Moved by Councillor Nelson, seconded by Councillor Contell. Councillor Nelson, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. GME consists of up to 6 positions of external members and a maximum of 12 on the GME board, made up of councillors. And it's a Senate-style process where we leave half of the external members on, and every 4 years we vote the other half. That way we don't lose that IP and experience. And up for re-election was, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Councillor Murray, I don't know why I said Mr. Robin Birrell, Lee McCluskey and Matthew Hood. Matthew's been with us since 2021. Extremely capable young man who used to work for the TAC, and my notes go, there they went. He was a marketing and partnership specialist, had a wealth of experience in managing event sponsorships and stakeholder relationships and financial governance. Hope Councillor Harwood's okay. And also, we also had Lee McCluskey, and she was appointed in 2018. She has a long time on print radio and as a television journalist. Has her own strategic communications company, and was certainly an asset over the last 4 years, making her views known at each and every event, except where she had a conflict. She was a great asset. They both were great assets to our little group of GME. Unfortunately for them, we had a massive amount of interest in GME this year. I'm not sure why that interest has come, but certainly a massive interest. We had, I'm trying to find my notes again, I'll get them, over 13 applicants, and 2 people that were certainly a standout, new applicants that were a standout, were Shannon Grove. He's a leader in workforce event management, worked on the Super Bowl, Commonwealth Games, FIFA World Cup, T20 World Cup, and Grand Prix. In fact, he just came over from the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix for his interview. Geelong born and bred, and will be a great asset. We also had Ken Borman. He has over 20 years' experience in events such as the Grand Prix, Australian Turf Club, Movember Foundation, and is part of Golf Australia. And we also had a returning member of Robin Birrell. It's good to see Robin back. And normally we would have Matthew and Lee back in a heartbeat, but because there was such a strong candidate list to choose from, I've not seen anything in my 10 years on GME, and certainly our ED, Sharon Cockle, has never seen such a strong field of candidates. So that's really good for Geelong, and that's really good for our strategic direction moving forward when we're going to have Commonwealth Games in a few years and other major events here in the Geelong region with the help of the state government, and I'll leave it at that for the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Councillor Sullivan. Look, I won't talk to this too much. I haven't been on the Major Events Committee for too long, but I know that others here have been. All I'd like to do is thank Lee McCluskey and Matthew Hood. I got to know him a little over the last couple of years. With COVID hasn't helped, obviously, because we haven't had as much engagement face-to-face over that time, but I certainly got to know Lee in recent times, more so, and she was certainly extremely capable, and I really enjoyed working with both of them. Thank them for their contribution to the Geelong community and to the Major Events Committee, and wish them all the best with their endeavours in the future, and of course welcome Robin, Shannon and Kent onto the committee, and look forward to working with them into the future as well.
Councillor Contell. Any other councillors to comment? Councillor Murray.
Thank you. Just briefly, look, again, I would like to thank Lee and Matt for their involvement. I presume they know. Yeah, thank you. And welcome Shannon and Kent as new members, and the reappointment as Robin as well. And it's certainly going to be an exciting time, I think, for the GME going forward. Certainly quiet times during COVID, and you know, the anticipation of what will happen from here going forward the next few years is exciting. So I think put your seatbelts on and go along for the ride. I think it's going to be exciting for the GME and what it brings to Geelong. Yeah.
Thanks, Murray. I'll just add myself, certainly as a fellow member of GME for a few years now, I certainly look forward to working with Shannon and Kent and the new skills and expertise they bring to this committee. And I certainly congratulate Robin Birrell in a reappointment, a fantastic candidate who's very knowledgeable in the arts sector. But that doesn't mean to detract from the great work that Lee McCluskey and Matthew Hood have put in for a long, long time now. And their work has been greatly appreciated. And now we're taking a next step in GME and constantly evolving and constantly working towards the future. So with that, no others to comment. Hope we go to Councillor Nelson to close.
Thank you, Peter Mayor. I forgot to mention Shannon was also involved in the Super Bowl, and it's great that we're able to leverage the new and expanded networks that these applicants will bring to GME, and this will be great for Geelong. I also failed to mention that these are not paid roles, so to have this level of experience and stakeholder engagement with these three applicants, two new ones, and Robin, it's going to be great for Geelong. Really good. Thanks.
Absolutely, thank you.
And thanks to Matthew and Lee.
Absolutely. And whilst noted, it is unpaid, so it's good to get people coming in and giving us their time. We have had years of fantastic service from these past candidates as well, unpaid, so we thank them. Right, with that, happy to put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Item is carried. Item 11 on the agenda, the Community Engagement Impact Report 2022. To be moved by Councillor Aiken and to be seconded by Councillor Mason. Councillor Aiken, please.
Thank you very much, Acting Mayor Sullivan. This is actually the first Community Engagement Impact Report that we've received as the Council Group. It was my pleasure in November 2020 to be appointed as Chair of the first engagement portfolio that we have, and Councillor Mason is the Deputy, and it actually reflected a change that was occurring in local government and also being driven by the Local Government Act from 2020. Councils had to actually formally engage with their communities, and this is our first 12-month report that we received from our engagement activities. The team's actually completely brand new. We actually have never had these resources before in the City of Greater Geelong. Community engagement seemed to be on a unit-by-unit basis, so there wasn't consistency in what we were doing. It's been fantastic to actually see the evolution over the last 15 months of the Council's engagement programs. And certainly what this report would probably amaze a lot of councillors and the members of the community as well too. Essentially in the last 12 months we've had 191,000 views to our Your Say platform. So nearly every single person in Geelong in terms of population base has looked at the Have Your Say website. We've had over 8,500 submissions by that platform, and we've had 78,863 people specifically visit the Your Say platform and make comment. We've had 4,905 downloads of documentations from the Have Your Say. And a part I'm really proud about is that we certainly have improved our accessibility to engagement, so that people that are from a non-English speaking background, people who don't have strong written and verbal communications can participate in it. However, I put a rider on all this. We've actually got a long way to go. And it's really encouraging that the team in the City of Greater Geelong acknowledge that themselves as well too. And they embrace new ideas that we present to them, both from the community and from the officer group and the councillors as well too, in terms of their input. And I think in 12 months' time we'll actually see a further change in our community engagement as a council group. We've learnt very much about deliberative engagement processes over the last 12 months, and that is where we actually go and target a specific group to actually give us feedback. We've learnt about peculiar interest of engagement processes, where in the past people that have got an interest in an issue have engaged with us, and we're actually learning that we need to actually engage with people that don't have an interest in what local government's doing. So it's a really exciting area to be involved in. I encourage councillors to talk about some of the engagement projects that have occurred in their local areas over the last 12 months. I personally am really proud of the Labian Square development project. It was a small-based local engagement process, which the officers said was one of the most heartening experiences they've encountered, because people who normally did not participate in engagement actually did engage in helping assist the council develop designs for the future of Labian Square. And it was heartening to see people that had never actually expressed their views about projects that the council has undertaken to actually come forward in that process. And we did use deliberative engagement. We actually worked with a very strong connected community organisation, which would be heartening to former councillor Tom O'Connor. We showed an example of how you can work with your localised community and get some really valuable input that assists the design of that particular project. And there's multiple of other examples. I mean, some bigger ones that we've been involved in is like the Geelong West Pakenham Street UDF and the South Geelong UDF. And even the Ocean Grove pedestrian network is a further example about how we're learning to engage with our community. We have legislative regulation that tells us we have to do it now. We actually are doing far more than what the regulation tells us what to do. And I look forward to further advancement, because we actually know it's always going to change. Technology is going to change, and the community's expectations. And certainly, if anything that was learnt from the federal election on the weekend is that you must listen to your community, because if you don't, they'll actually quickly remove you.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Councillor Mason.
Deputy Mayor Sullivan, excuse me. Councillor Aiken has said it all, I think. And I'd just like to emphasise that really this was the first time over this last 12 months, and the data we've got now is the baseline data for the future. And in a way it's quite challenging, because I think we've done quite a good job. And so there's going to be a standard there that's going to have to be met against this baseline data that we've already got. And we are, through deliberative engagement and other forms of engagement, tapping the skills of the community. And I do note that Councillor Aitken mentioned so many engagements that we've had during this period. But in terms of the Bellarine, certainly the St Leonard's Skate Park has been, there's been a significant engagement on that. The Ocean Grove pedestrian network. Similarly, we've got a better climate change response plan now through community engagement. about a master plan for Barwon Heads Village. And some other little details. We've got engaging with the community in various ways, giving them greater access through a facility we called Read Speaker, audio listening tool added to our Have Your Say platform. And various other delivery of hybrid engagements, providing greater choice and access, offering even one-on-one phone conversations at times, and the translation information on every Have Your Say project page. So there's so many things, so many elements to this, and it's been excellent work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Any other councillors care to comment on this? Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, it's. I think how Councillor Aiken summed it up pretty well. This is a great report, but it can be so much better. The numbers are quite staggering, 191,000, as Councillor Aiken explained, and nearly 79,000 people visited the Your Say platform. But I think he hit the nail on the head. What it does say is that how much better we can do it. And that's not saying we haven't done it poorly, because we have done it well. But I think what it does show when you go out to the community, and they will tell you how much it can be improved. And a couple of examples from like the Brownbill ward where I've been a little involved is the Chilwell Library. And that's a great example of the community engagement. I think there was initial plans drawn up for the library, and went out for public consultation, and the library group weren't particularly overawed by those plans. And through their involvement, they now have what they want for that library. And another example, of course, and Councillor Aiken alluded to this, was the Geelong West Paddington Street UDF. I think there was four consultation periods for that UDF, because the first, and of course we're talking about COVID period, where normally you prefer face-to-face, and a lot of it was done online, so it was difficult. But I think it was 4 different periods of public consultation with that West UDF, and eventually it formed our opinion that we wouldn't proceed with the North at the time, and we'd send that for further consultation. So that's a great example of getting a result that the community was supportive of. And another was the South Geelong UDF. I think it falls into the 12 months from the 1st of April last year to the 31st of March of this year. Certainly there's, as a result of that public consultation, there's been changes made to that South Geelong UDF. So, yes, it's great work, and of course there's no restrictions on what can be used or what tool can be used for community engagement. So I think we're learning along the way, and it all bears well for the future.
Councillor Murray. Any other councillors comment? Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Councillor Sullivan. Yeah, look, again, I'm supportive like everyone else, and do thank and applaud the officers for the work they've been doing in this space. But equally, if I could just add a balancing comment, that I still think we've got so much work to do, and we need to continue to get our hands dirty. And in those examples that Councillor Murray put up, as positive as they were, it also took a lot of grunt work to make sure that we did get in front of the community, that we slowed down the consultation period. We can't just expect that if we put something on Have Your Say, put it on the website, that we're going to get feedback from the broader community, because we just are not. We will get feedback from a portion of the community, particularly those that are well connected to electronic communication and activities, but there's a broad-based community that we will miss. And what I mean by getting our hands dirty is that we do need to have those town hall types of opportunities where people can come and talk to us, come and speak to us, the elderly, those folk that don't engage in electronic communication. The listening posts for the budget was a perfect example. Great engagement on the day, but I don't feel that a lot of people knew about it. Those on social media maybe, but a lot of those people that are not in social media perhaps didn't know about it. So I think good work, but we need to continue to be really, really active and present in the community and get our hands dirty and just slow things down a little, give people the opportunity to engage, because that have your say goes very quickly, and then all of a sudden we think we've got the broader community feedback, but we know that we don't, and then all of a sudden they turn up here and telling us as such. So it's a continuous improvement initiative, and we just need to be aware of that.
Sorry. More said, Councillor Contell. Councillor Mansfield.
Yeah, thank you, Acting Mayor. And look, I agree with a lot of the comments that have been made, and particularly as Councillor Contell has pointed out, there's real value in looking at different methods of engagement, and I think that's something we have been looking at. Certainly it's been challenging during COVID, but I think we've seen as there's been the restrictions have eased and we've done a bit more of that face-to-face engagement. We've had, some drop-in sessions for some of the more difficult topics we're dealing with. Got some engagement around bike lanes again and had drop-in sessions for that. We've got, we've had some engagement around the social housing land transfer proposals and, had physical meetings on site that were well attended. I think it makes a real difference for people to be able to go and have those face-to-face conversations. Equally, some people can't make those, so I think making more use of some of those online resources, not just a survey, but other forms of engagement will be really important going forward. We're doing a bit of novel engagement with around our positive ageing active plan, action plan, and that's about as close to co-design as we've come with something like that. So that'll be really interesting to see what the outcomes of that are. But I do think all councils, and all levels of government probably struggle with engagement on really difficult issues, and the challenge remains with how we bring the community along with us. And we've got some tough ones coming up. We want to increase density in urban areas. That's a tough discussion to have. Nowhere seems to do that really well, and I'd love to see how we can improve engagement and bring the community on that journey. There's good evidence that protected cycling infrastructure tends to be an emotional and divisive issue in communities, and again, there aren't a lot of great examples of it being done really, that engagement being done really well and bringing the community on the journey. So, and there are lots of other examples where we'll have some tough discussions. So I think this is a great start, but I'd love to see us go further and really look at how we can be innovative in this space and do more of that really meaningful engagement with our community.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Any councillors to comment? If not, I'll throw back to Councillor Aiken to close. Councillor Aiken.
I'll be brief, and just I want to thank our advisory committees. We haven't actually mentioned them as well too in our engagement process. They've been a great resource that we've relied on for the last 4 years. And I should also tell the council group that the team in this area are actually so responsive. It's fantastic. Examples are they've started a process to look at leading questions. Our business units actually put forward engagement proposals, and the team actually screens them now to actually look for leading questions, because they actually don't want our business units to manipulate and influence the engagement process. They're also conscious of community fatigue from consultation as well too, and I think you can add councillor and officer fatigue with consultation as well too. We get exhausted from it as well too, and just to provide further example about it's not just all online and modern technology. I mean, the Access and Inclusion Committee that I chair constantly requests to have walk and roll-throughs. So they actually want to look at built infrastructure and proposed infrastructure and actually go on roll-throughs through them to actually see how disabled access, accessible our facilities are and infrastructure have. So there's, look, I'm encouraged by what we've seen. and I think the community should as well too. We've still got a long way to go because a lot of people think that we're not listening. We're just going through engagement ticker box processes. But I can assure the community that we certainly understand the importance of the community investing in what we are doing in Geelong and influencing what we do as well too. And I look forward to the next report in 12 months' time as well.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aiken. All right, with that, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Item is passed. Item number 12 is Clever and Creative, Our Progress 2021, to be moved by Councillor Maloney. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Murray. Councillor Maloney.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. With regard to this report, we're asked to note the Clever and Creative Our Progress report for 2021. The Council's committed to a yearly review and reporting on these outcomes so that we can understand what these indicators mean for our community. It's a really brilliant snapshot of what has been going on. One of the things I really love is the Sport for All program, which supports disabled people who want to participate in our school sports and any grassroots activities. This report has a few key milestones in there as well. Some of the existing commitments to the Nash that we spoke about earlier. There's some engagement with the traditional owners and utilising their knowledge and expertise. So that's quite apparent in this report. And there are 9 community aspirations in this report that dictate our process, where we've come and where we're going to be. It also highlights that net zero emissions component that was mentioned, I guess, throughout several of our points tonight. It's one thing to say that we're being clever and creative, but our creative industries have had a huge hit over the last 2 years. They've had an economic nightmare, so to speak. They've not been able to work. So it'll be really great to see how our Clever and Creative Council can engage our creative communities in order to bring our economy back up to scratch. Also noted in this report is the suburban tree canopy, which is currently sitting at 14%, and our endeavours to create mechanisms of different funding to make that 25%. So that's exciting. But I'll leave that for our other councillors to comment on and look forward to hearing more progress. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Maloney. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And as Councillor Maloney alluded to, it's like what's going on. And this is the progress report that, from Clever and Creative about what is and what has been going on. So Councillor Maloney alluded to a couple of activities, and I just wanted to highlight a couple too. And over the past 12 months, with the Vision Partner Group worked on the Brand Geelong project, and I look forward to the launch of that very soon. And of course, that leverages the region's advantages, positions it both nationally and internationally as a designation of choice for people. And speaking as a designation for people, a destination, leading places, the 100 most loved destinations around the world for 2021, placed the Bellarine at number 25 and Geelong at number 69. How about that? 2 others too, the Manufutures 2, a $20 million innovation hub at Deakin, and the announcement of the Hanwha Defence Australian constructing its $1 billion Land 8116 Armoured Vehicle Centre of Excellence at Avalon. So some other examples of what can be achieved, clever and creative progress. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Any other councillors care to comment? Before we put this one to the vote. All right. With that, I'll throw back to Councillor Maloney to also. Councillor Maloney to close. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. With regard to this vision refresh, this really aligns with a lot of the sub-plans and strategies that we've been talking about in the last couple of years, and it's also reinvigorated what has been going on since 2017, which is great to see a part of that, our community plan being really filtered through what we do, our sustainability goals, our rebrand of Geelong, as it were. I think that is incredibly necessary so that we can all talk to people about being proud of being from Geelong and what that means, having a brand essence and a purpose that I don't think everyone has really foreseen as a cohesive group. So hopefully we can see what that narrative looks like as we put Geelong on the map and out to the world going forward. So looking forward to hearing back comments and feedback on this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Well said. With that, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Item carried. All right, item 13, year-to-date quarterly financial management report, March 2022. I have a mover by Councillor Aiken and seconded by Councillor Harwood. Councillor Aiken.
Thank you very much, Acting Mayor Sullivan. Look, as Chair of the Finance Committee, it's actually my pleasure to present this report to the Council Group and also the broader community. This report actually probably identifies how difficult it has been to actually budget over the last 3 years, because when we originally developed our operating budget for 21-22, we anticipated a deficit of $8.1 million. It's my pleasure tonight to announce that to the 31st of March year to date, we're looking at a $3.2 million surplus. And in fact, our current full year surplus is expected to be $9.3 million. What has actually caused that turnaround? Well, as I said, it probably is the difficulty of budgeting in a COVID environment. Examples of what Council, our rate income was favourable of about $1.2 million. Government grants, we actually received approximately $4.8 million favourable compared to what our budget position was. An unfavourable outcome was that our user charges were down by about $11.5 million to year to date, and most of that was actually associated with the closures. It seems like so many years ago that we had closures, but it was only in the first half of this financial year that most of our aquatics and other leisure facilities that we have in the city of Greater Geelong were closed because of COVID. Other areas that were favourable to us that assisted us to move towards a surplus financial trading position as the council this year, our employer costs were down by about $7.7 million. And that once again reflected our casual workforce in particular that we use in our leisure areas and the savings associated with that. There are some other important ones to announce as well too. Our doubtful debts, it was really hard for the financial team to actually make a judgment about the community's capacity to pay their rates and also fees and charges during the COVID environment. And in fact, we actually overestimated how much we would need in terms of doubtful debt. So we've actually got a 2.3 favourable position associated with that. Our consultancies were down by about $1.2 million. So in other words, the team has been really conscious of not adding to unexpected costs. And an interesting one, which the community would know about as well too, is that we actually had a $600,000 gain in our used fleet sales compared to budget. And that actually did reflect, I think, everybody that's bought a used car in the last 2 years, how much the price of used cars have escalated. And in fact, we were able to take advantage of that in the city of Greater Geelong with our fleet turnover and had a $600,000 benefit. So, look, this report shows that we will certainly end the year with a surplus, which is a good outcome from the council because it means it gives us more spending capacity going forward and more capacity to respond to investments in our community. But it does show the difficult environment that we've been operating under in terms of trying to create budgets. We won't see some of these figures vary so much for the forthcoming financial year because we're not anticipating any closures or COVID for the next 12-month period, fingers crossed. And so we'll have a bit more less variable and variance that we've had to experience as a council in the community. So overall, from a financial perspective, it's actually a very good set of figures and numbers, and I congratulate all the staff, not just in the finance team, but across the whole 2,700 staff of the City of Greater Geelong that helped contribute towards this financial position, which is certainly a lot better than what we envisaged just over 15 to 16 months ago when we first adopted our budget.
Councillor Aiken. Councillor Harwood, please.
Thanks, Councillor Sullivan. I think it's a pretty fair assessment that Councillor Aiken has made, and I think also, I don't know if you call it a volatile environment, but certainly a very unpredictable environment as to where our sort of wins and losses were going to be. Fortunately, we're seeing more wins than losses over the journey for a myriad of reasons that perhaps couldn't have been predicted. But I guess the good news is that the council remains a very stable financial organisation. Again, as rightly noted, through the good stewardship of Michael Degina and his team. So we say thank you to his team. I'll just make one comment in relation to our capital projects program in particular, and well documented the cost of construction itself, and this no doubt will have an impact across the board as we have such a deep commitment to our community for construction of a whole range of projects. There's no doubt there's going to be considerable pain with some of those projects as the costs will blow out. We are seeing a number of builders literally walking away on some of those projects. So I'll just make that sort of that comment about, again, referring to how difficult it is to accurately track our finances on occasions when I guess these sorts of circumstances arise of which we have no control, but we are deeply affected in the community. We're also heavily affected by that. So we're cognizant of it. We put in contingencies in place on all our projects, but sometimes it's we still get caught out. But as I say, the community should have good faith in this council and the way it's operating its finances, and we're still a very well managed and well financed organisation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. And the councillors wish to comment? So back to Councillor Aiken to close. Councillor Aiken.
Look, just to add to the commentary on the capital spend, the organisation actually has matured significantly over the last 2 years in how it manages its capital spend and trying to reduce the annual carryover figure. In fairness, this financial year, look, the closures didn't help us. I mean, you can't spend money on supplies and labour when you physically can't be on the worksite. And a fascinating one, which Councillor Nelson would be interested in, is that our capital spend's under because we haven't actually been able to execute a number of land acquisitions in the Armstrong Creek area. And I'm talking about multi-million dollars here, Councillor Nelson, about $15 to $18 million worth of land acquisitions. So it's certainly balancing against what we're spending out in the north with those level of expenditure that we're suggesting in the Armstrong Creek area. And it has been harder to negotiate with people to be able to finish off those land acquisitions, but I am advised that we will certainly meet our targets that we have, and we will meet the financial targets that we have as well to be able to develop the community infrastructure that's needed in the Armstrong Creek area as our major urban growth area that exists in Geelong at the present time.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. With that, happy to put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The item is carried. Item number 14, proposed sale, land abutting 49 Lascelles Avenue, Manifold Heights. Moved by Councillor Murray. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This report recommends that Council approve the sale of the land resulting from the road discontinuance behind 49 Lascelles Avenue and Manifold Heights. The land is behind the property at 49 Lascelles Avenue with an area of approximately 45 square metres and is the result of an historic road reserve which was discontinued by the City of Greater Geelong in 1999. At the time of the discontinuance, most parts of the road reserve were sold and transferred to adjoining property owners, but this parcel of land was not sold. The City has obtained a current market valuation of the land, and if the Council approves the sale of the land, it will be sold with consideration to the valuation. Community engagement on the proposed sale was undertaken, submissions were invited but none were received. Public notices were published. And Deputy Mayor, look, there's been a handful of these matters that have come before Council over the last couple of years, which begs the question how many more opportunities exist out there for someone to maybe extend their backyard. Nothing further.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Mansfield, please.
I don't think I've got anything further to add. Thanks, Acting Mayor.
Roger that. Thank you. Any other councillors to comment? Councillor Murray to close.
I will close. Actually, I went for a drive up there today to try and find this 49 Lascelles Avenue, and I mean, there's laneways everywhere, and it's actually, you can see where it was discontinued quite a number of years ago. So someone has extended their backyard by 2.5 metres or whatever it is. So there must be many opportunities for this to occur right throughout Geelong, because as we know, the history of Geelong, there's laneways and alleys that exist all over the place. So look, there might be other opportunities there. So if anyone's listening, over your back fence is a laneway that no one uses, and it's maybe blocked one end. Get on to council, we might be able to help you out.
Just call first. Excellent. All right, with that, happy to put to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The item is carried. Item number 15, proposed lease to Telstra Corporation Limited, Mount Anarchy 2392A, Balan Road. Anarchy. Moved Councillor Grisbeck, seconded Councillor Aiken. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll quickly run through this report. It recommends that Council approve a 21-year lease to Telstra for the site at Mount Anarchy. Telstra has occupied this location from 1995, when the city was appointed committee management over this land. The existing lease expired in February 2021, and Telstra has maintained occupation just on a holding over clause. The leased area is a small piece of land on top of Mount Anarchy, and the infrastructure within there sort of in the egress and access to the site sort of within their small site. Council commenced community engagement in July last year for its intention to lease this particular site. We received one submission, which was from the Wadawurrung traditional owners. And the report notes that the Wadawurrung people did not support the infrastructure at the top of Mount Anarchy, and that site is significantly cultural heritage location. With consultation, the city, Telstra and Wadawurrung agreed to incorporate into the lease that the city don't intend to offer the land beyond the new 21-year lease, and that no works be undertaken within the lease without the approval of the city and Wadawurrung traditional owners, and that this would be a special condition in the lease would mean at the end of the 21 years that the Telstra should remove all infrastructure and remediate the area at the end of the lease at their cost. And I think this is a significant piece of infrastructure that for the Anarchy community. It provides Telstra service, where we saw that was limited in the last year or two, where there were months and months without any actual internet and phone signals. So whilst this infrastructure is really important to the community, we also acknowledge that this site is significantly cultural heritage so this site has significant cultural heritage meaning to the Wadawurrung people. So I think the outcome is a good outcome, and hopefully by 21 years' time we'll have some technology that won't require this particular infrastructure to sit over the top of our cultural heritage site for the Wadawurrung people. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Aiken.
Yeah, isn't it fascinating what you learn again as well too? You know, like in 1995 when we first put this out to tender with Telstra, you know, we just thought it was modern technology that you had to put on the top of the hill at Mount Anarchy, which to give the best reception to this new technology called mobile phones. 27 years later, the operator's asking for an extension for another 21 years, and what do we're compelled to go through community consultation on the project for the lease, the proposed lease. And what do we find out? We actually get educated that it's of significant living cultural heritage place for our local Wadawurrung community. And to their credit as well too, what they've done, they've advised us of that to take into consideration in the lease. And then they actually also said, look, we will negotiate with Council and Telstra, and they were very accommodating to Telstra to say, all right, we'll allow you to use this site, but the commitment is that you won't come back at the end of this particular lease in 21 years' time. And so I thank Warrawong for teaching us about the site location, and I thank them for their patience and their generosity in allowing us to use that land for another 21 years, because it is a very good site location for the current technology that we have with mobile phones, and it would be devastating if the Anarchy community lost this particular site location at this point of time with mobile connections. So a win-win for everybody, and also congratulations to our leasing team that actually helped facilitate the discussions between Warrawong and Telstra, and a good outcome for everyone in the end, I believe.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Other councillors to comment? Not. I throw back to Councillor Grisbeck to close.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just finally, the rent that's received from this lease will be distributed towards environmental management on this site and maintenance of the native vegetation and access track. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. With that, happy to put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Item carried. Item number 16, tender T220048, Shell Reserve Change Facility Redevelopment, construction of the tender. Moved by Councillor Aiken, seconded by Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Aiken.
Look, I don't have too much to talk about it, except that Kylie and I went out there last week and visited the club. And gee, they are so happy about what the City of Greater Geelong do. Kylie and I, they reminded us, in fact, when Kylie and I went out there 4 years ago, and they had one netball court which was all cracked and was right next to a water main. So visually, it was really unattractive. They had a cricket facilities that were really in a derelict state and couldn't be used. And the club is so appreciative of the investment that the City of Greater Geelong has made out there, and will continue to make. The cricket training nets are probably the best in the whole of Geelong at the present time. They're quite amazing, and I thank the state government for their financial contributions towards that one. The netball courts are probably our best at the present time in the whole of Geelong as well too, in the surface. It's brand new, and it meets our current standards of having 2 netball courts. But of course, the last component that needs to be done, which is what we're adopting tonight, is a $2.5 million renovation of their change rooms to make female-friendly change room facilities out there. And certainly for the GDFL competition, both for netball and for football, and the Geelong cricket that Corio plays in as well too, in terms of the district league. They will be very proud of the investment and the home that they will have in about 18 months' time when it is completed. And it really is a good example about how you work with your local community. I mean, the club's actually doing fantastic things. They're starting a women's cricket club. They're saying women's football. It's the home of RecLink, which is intellectual and mental health football in Victoria, in Geelong. That they really are trying to break the mould about how a sporting club should be reflective of their local community, and then that certainly reflects the investments that both council and I congratulate the state government too on this project. They actually did allocate $500,000 to us towards this project as well too. So. Really heartening experience, and Kylie and I look forward to going out there when it is completed and finished, and sharing the joy that local community now has for what are some great community facilities.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you. My speech is along the same lines. Thank you to John Erin, our local state member, who advocated hard for this contribution from the state. You can't underestimate the benefits that this will give to the Corio community. And as Anthony had said, we toured the new cricket nets and the netball courts that have just been completed, and the club is so proud of its community, and the community deserves to have the facilities that you would see anywhere in Geelong. The smiles on the faces of those netballers, the Auskick kids that we saw on the pitch, the cricket players, that can't be underestimated. Well done to Greg Ince and the team down at Corio for their hard work on this project. This project, you'll see solar panels, battery storage systems, rainwater harvesting tanks. I mean, these are state-of-the-art facilities. The community provides over 100 meals to the community and to the club members from their canteen. And what an amazing community. And I'm just going to put on the record and pin Councillor Aitken that we are going to do a tour of the local clubs and their Thursday night dinners, because from what I saw at Corio the other night, their chicken palmies won't be beaten. So I think that, what they do for their community outside of sport is really something to be congratulated. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. To councillors, Councillor Murray.
To put the challenge out there, Councillor Grisbeck, I think there's some chicken palmies at a lot of footy clubs on a Thursday night that are pretty good. What I just wanted to speak about on this contract is obviously the Plan Group. And the Plan Group have done some fantastic work over the last few years. St Joseph's, West, St Mary's. So it doesn't surprise me at all that they picked up another contract, because they're certainly the leader in their field at the moment. So doing some great work, and I'm sure these facilities will turn out just as good as those others. So it's a good contract to award.
Thanks, Murray. Any other councillors care to comment? Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I toured the facility a few months ago, or was it weeks ago? I forget now. And it is by far the best cricket training facility in Geelong, by far. So congratulations to the Devils out there, and I'm sure the facilities will be just as good, if not better, than the cricket nets, because they are.
Nelson, any councillors to comment? I throw back to Councillor Aitken to close.
To add, Acting Mayor Sullivan.
Councillor Aitken, with that, happy to put to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Item carried. Right, item number 17. Glenley Estate, Stage 8, revocation of flood-prone area, designation of new lots, moved by Councillor Maloney, seconded by Councillor Harwood. Councillor Maloney.
Hopefully you can hear me. It's not coming off mute. There we go. Thank you, Acting Mayor. With regard to this revocation, this is the Glenley Estate, Stage 8. So this is a new up-and-coming part of Charlemont area that is about to be revoked. The flood-prone designation area from the Glenley Estate, Stage 8 to 107, this endeavour involves a whole bunch of internal drainage, road construction and earthworks to make sure that the potential flood waters in the 1 in 100 year flood would remain in the drainage reserves that are built for this. So it allows and affords the individuals who are going to be living in this area a sense of comfort, and also additional insurance policy upgrades from this flood mapping. So I'll leave the rest for others to comment, but thank you for that.
Councillor Maloney. Councillor Harwood. Thank you. Councillor Maloney, anything to add? Oh, sorry, any other councillors' questions? Nope. Councillor Maloney to close?
Nothing further, thank you.
Thank you. All right, happy to put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Carried. Item number 18, Anchorage Estate, stages 14 and 15, revocation of flood-prone area, designation of new lots, moved by Councillor Harwood, seconded by Councillor Nelson. Councillor Harwood, please.
Thank you. As well articulated by Councillor Maloney before in relation to the revocation of floodplain areas, in relation to the work's been done to make sure that they don't flood, and that landowners can get insurance as a result of when they build their property. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nelson?
Nothing further, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Is any of the councillors to comment? Councillor Harwood to close.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Item is carried. All right. Now that's the end of the reports we have been open. I'll go to section D, record of informal meetings of councillors. Can I please have a mover? Councillor Grisbeck, seconded by Councillor Contell. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Carried. Section E, planning delegations. Can I please have a move of planning delegations? Councillor Harwood, seconded by Councillor Mason. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Item carried. Section F, confidentiality. Item 6.1 is the 2021-22 Environmental Sustainability Grants Round 2. Can I please have a move and a second to put this into confidential? Moved by Councillor Contell, seconded by Councillor Aiken. So, all those in favour? Thank you. All those against? All right, and another one to move the item 6.2 Bell Park Sports Club in confidentiality. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Contell, seconded by Councillor Mansfield. All those in favour? Thank you. All right. We are now going to consider those remaining item agendas in our confidential section of the meeting. Companies have a mover to close. So now I need to move in second to close this meeting to the public so we can consider these items. Can I have a mover? Councillor Harwood, seconded by Councillor Murray. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Carried. I would now like to thank both our virtual and in-person members of the gallery for their participation tonight. We now have an empty gallery, which shows me particular items that they're interested in. But for everybody online, thank you for sticking with us. We do appreciate your attention, and it's great that we are at a stage now where we can have healthy numbers online and back in the chamber. And with that, good evening, everybody.